Chapter 253. When they came to the market, there were scattered travelers walking around. Some of them were probably from the grassland tribes, who were closer to the market. They brought their things and set up their stalls, gathering with their tribesmen so that they wouldn't be bullied. At least the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe's markets were guarded by these two tribes, so other people didn't dare to make trouble. If they always made trouble, they wouldn't give face to these two tribes, and would be remembered by these two tribes. But it was different here. There were often large-scale group fights. When Xiao Xian and the others arrived, a fight had just ended. The two traveling teams fought, and both sides suffered casualties. There were many bloodstains on the ground after the fight. Some people were cleaning up the corpses, while others didn't feel strange at all. Stepping on the ground full of flesh and blood, they still didn't change their expressions. This was a place where strength spoke, using the most primitive competition rules. If you didn't have strength, even if you were killed, no one would look at you. The good thing was that compared to the markets of the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, there were fewer travelers here because they hadn't really entered the central region. In addition, it was close to the grassland, so most of the people were warriors from the grassland tribes. There were also some nearby tribesmen who came here to trade. Some of the people who set up stalls here took out cattle and sheep and other livestock to trade, and some were like the Pu tribe, who exchanged things from other places and then brought them here to sell. Most of the things on display in the market were livestock, food, tools and weapons, and there were also herbs. In general, the variety was far less than that of the Mang tribe and the Eight Limbs tribe, but it was still lively. After all, it was the only trading gathering place in this area. The tall and strong warriors were talking loudly. Some of them were talking, and when they failed to trade, they directly used their knives to kill. This kind of thing could be seen at any time. Xiao Xian asked around, but didn't hear about any wanderers groups coming here, which made Mai a little disappointed. It seemed that it wasn't so easy to find people. Kuan Tu didn't give up. Even in the market, he still whistled after walking for a while, hoping that there was someone in the market who could understand the whistle. Otherwise, how could he find other wanderers in such a big place? Or maybe, other wanderers weren't as lucky as them, and didn't meet the warriors sent by the Yanjiao tribe and got into trouble. Thinking about this, Kuan Tu walked behind Mai absent-mindedly. They walked around the market but found nothing. When they were about to leave, they heard a whistle when they passed by the mountain closest to the market. It was the same sound as Kuan Tu's whistle. It's them. Kuan Tu's eyes lit up. He looked around, but he couldn't tell where they were. Mai and the others had better hearing and immediately locked onto the location. Over there. Let's go. Mai was happy to finally have a clue, but at the same time, he was worried because the mountain was the resting place for travelers. Not only were there a lot of people, but they were also totem warriors. For tourists, it was not a good place. Xiao Xian had seen such a cave before. In the bazaar of the Mang and Eight Limbs tribes, he had followed the Pu tribe's traveling team to live in a similar cave. He had seen with his own eyes how they fought for the cave. There was no order, it was all based on strength. Because of this, he wondered why the wanderers that Kuan Tu mentioned would go there. The whistle blew twice and then stopped. Kuan Tu blew again, but there was no response. Why did they stop blowing? Lang Jie wondered. Maybe something really happened. Xiao Xian said. The mountain that served as the resting place seemed to have been hollowed out. There were several entrances and exits at the bottom of the mountain. The most important entrance directly divided the mountain that had been dug into a circular shape. Therefore, if one looked down from above, the mountain that served as a resting place for the travelers looked like a nearly 300-degree arc. Many of the mountain's entrances were dug out manually, and there were holes everywhere. When Xiao Xian and the others rushed to the mountain, 10 wanderers were standing on the circular mountain where travelers rested. Several of them were injured, but they didn't have time to wipe off the blood. In front of them, an expedition team had surrounded them. The others around looked at them as if they were watching a play. No one would intervene in this situation. This kind of thing added to their fun. They all stood at the entrance of their team and watched what happened over there. Among the 10 people, the leading wanderer was called Chi-E. He held a wooden whistle tightly in his hand. It was not him who blew the whistle, but a young man beside him. But before he could blow twice, Chi-E took the wooden whistle away from him. He naturally knew that his companions were nearby, but he couldn't let them come over. They were all wanderers, and here, it was like a big mouth full of sharp teeth. Those totem warriors were the sharp teeth in the big mouth. If wanderers came in, they would lose a layer of skin even if they didn't die. The 10 of them didn't matter. If others came, they would die. In front of Chi-E, the traveling team looked at them jokingly, as if they were playing with prey in a cage. Why don't you continue to blow? Are your companions coming? Continue to blow and call them over. I want to see what your companions look like. A man in the traveling team opposite said. Yes, continue to blow. We will take as many as they come. Are there any women? The people on the side echoed. Listening to the words of the people around them, Chi-E and his companions looked worse. But now, they couldn't escape. Chi-E looked at the people in another cave not far away. There, he knew many of them, but no one stood up to help them. When everyone looked at Chi-E, in a cave higher up, a totem warrior carried a clay pot full of water into the cave. As he walked in, he said to other companions in the cave, "Wanderers are so bold now. Only 10 of them dare to come here." He had just gone to get water. When he went up the mountain, he saw the scene over there. Wanderers? How can wanderers come to such a place? Even if there are 100 of them, it will be useless. Someone in the cave asked. Who knows? The man holding the clay pot didn't care. If you want to know, you can go out and see. The fight hasn't started yet. What's there to see? If 2 traveling teams fight, I will be a little interested. Wanderers? Tut! The man curled his lips and leaned against the cave wall to look at the people coming out of the depths of the cave. Gula, what do you think Shan Dao encountered? Did he really meet other eagles? The people coming out of the cave did not answer, but sighed. In the cave, an eagle with injuries stayed there to rest. There were many scratches and bites on its body. There were many bald places on its body. Its feathers were forcibly pulled out, and many places were still bleeding. It was better after applying medicine. Compared with Cha-Cha, this eagle named Shan Dao, which was about the same size as Cha-Cha, was much more seriously injured. Gula took out the kettle and drank a few mouthfuls of water. He recalled the situation when he saw Shan Dao come back this morning. They thought that Shan Dao would not meet a strong enemy in the air. With Shan Dao's size and strength, it would be good if he didn't kill other birds. The probability of encountering a strong enemy was too small, so they didn't worry much. Unexpectedly, when they saw him come back, they were all dumbfounded. At that time, Shan Dao's feathers were stained with blood. Some of the feathers on his body were upside down, so he flew unsteadily. When he came back, he fell to the ground and screamed unwillingly. After some medicine, he calmed down. Now he was sleeping. Otherwise, if he woke up, he would probably continue to struggle and fly out to fight. What happened to him? Why was he injured like this? Gula didn't know. Among the people resting in the cave, 2 teenagers felt bored, so they went out of the cave to see how things were going over there. It turned out to be the people of the Dishan tribe. They can only bully some weak people. One of them looked at the traveling team over there and said contemptuously. Chi-E was thinking about how to deal with the current situation when he heard the whistle from outside the mountain again. It seemed that the whistler was afraid that he couldn't hear it. However, when Chi-E and the others arrived at the mountain, they found that the 8 people who had troubled them before were from the Dishan tribe, and the cave where the Dishan tribe rested was right next to them. It happened to be blocked. The people of the Dishan tribe asked Chi-E to go back and bring the young women in the team here. Otherwise, they would kill all 10 of them. That's right. They just heard the whistle and said that they would kill as many people as they could. The young wanderer next to Chi-yi began to complain. The faces of the people of the Dishan tribe twitched, and they thought, nonsense, when did we say that we would kill as many people as we want? Although we thought so in our hearts, we didn't say so directly. When Mai and the others learned the reason, they suddenly became angry. Their evil spirit was unreservedly emitted from their bodies. They were like ferocious beasts that were ready to pounce on their prey. Pairs of fierce eyes stared at the people of the Dishan tribe. Xiao Xian looked at the team of the Dishan tribe. Actually, he saw a few familiar faces, but these people might not remember him. When he was in the Longboat tribe, Xiao Xian had met this team and killed several of them. It was really a small world. The people around, who had been watching the fun carelessly, suddenly became excited. The Wanderers and the Totem Warriors had upgraded to a contest between the Totem Warriors. It was interesting, but they didn't know which tribe these people were from. Seeing this team of people, the people of the Dishan tribe were stunned. They were secretly surprised. Weren't they wanderers? How could so many warriors suddenly appear? 2 of them were senior Totem Warriors. Leader. The people of the Dishan tribe looked at the leader of the team and asked what to do next. The leader of the Dishan tribe changed his expression. His eyes stayed on Mai and Wei for a long time. He held the stone knife tightly in his hand and said, "Good. Very good. I didn't expect there to be a tribe. Which tribe are you from?" Mai took a step forward. There was a fist-sized stone under his feet. He didn't avoid it, but directly stepped on it. He said in a low voice, "The Yanjiao tribe." As his voice fell, there was a bang sound under Mai's feet. The stone was broken. Even the walkway outside the cave was shaking, and the people around were shocked. The Yanjiao tribe? They had never heard of it. Some people thought it was familiar, but they couldn't tell too much. In short, in everyone's eyes, they couldn't tell why. They were all from small tribes, so they didn't need to care. Seeing that Mai didn't want to retreat, the leader of the Dishan tribe was also angry. So what if the other side had 2 senior Totem Warriors? They had 3 on their side. Besides, they had more people. How could they be afraid of 20 people with more than 100 people? So you don't want to hand them over? The leader asked. Those who bully my tribe, Mai looked straight at the leader, and his eyes flashed fiercely, "Die." So arrogant? Mai's words stunned the people around him. This Yanjiao tribe was really overbearing. They were simply arrogant. Didn't they see the faces of the people of the Dishan tribe turn black? Mai's words were also what the other people of the Yanjiao tribe thought. From the other side of the river, they had worked hard to return to the old haunt. Along the way, they had learned a lot. The face of the tribe naturally had to be protected. Outside, they couldn't retreat when they encountered such things. The courage in their bones didn't allow them to send their tribesmen to the other side's cave. So what if they were from the Dishan tribe? So what if they had more people? They would still do it. In the face of the more aggressive momentum of the 20 people of the Yanjiao tribe, the leader of the traveling team of the Dishan tribe felt a little uneasy. None of these people flinched, and none of them had the intention to retreat. More than 20 forces were almost twisted together, like a fierce flaming broadsword, ready to fight to the death at any time. It was really tricky. It was better to test it out. The leader of the Dishan tribe made a gesture with his hand behind his back. A warrior on the side suddenly took a few steps forward. He didn't face Mai and Wei, but stepped towards Chi-yi and the others. "So what if I bully you?" As he spoke, the man pulled out an arm-long stone knife hanging from his waist. Under Yang Guang's hand, the knife had a luster like the dusk, as if it was going to bring the night. With the sudden outbreak of the totem power, the totem patterns on the man's body appeared. He kicked the ground with one leg, and the tip of the knife was aimed at Chi-yi, who was standing behind Xiao Xian. The next moment, Chi-yi's head would be cut off. Seeing that the man suddenly attacked him, Chi-yi felt a strong sense of crisis, and he couldn't help but take a step back. However, Xiao Xian, who was standing in front of him, didn't retreat. At the moment when the man stabbed him, Xiao Xian suddenly swung his arm. The gray shadow of the knife was mixed with a strong murderous aura. It was obviously the color of an ordinary stone, but at this moment, it gave people a feeling of extreme coldness. At a faster speed than the man, the knife swept from front to back and passed through the man's body without a trace of stagnation. Where the blade passed, blood splashed out. This knife didn't bring dusk, but eternal night. The blade was stained with the color of blood, shocking the heart and soul. Puff! The man who rushed over was in a daze. His body was broken into two parts. His attack lost its support, and the blade lost its murderous aura. The broken body fell to the ground, raising a cloud of dust, while the other half rushed out of the walkway in front of the cave and fell down the mountain. Xiao Xian did not look back at the part that had fallen to the ground, but looked at the other people of the Dishan tribe. He repeated Mai's words, which was also a reply to what Mai had just said. Those who bully my tribesmen, die. Obviously, his tone was not as strong as Mai's, but it made the listeners feel as cold as ice. Many people around couldn't help but shiver. In front of the people of the Dishan tribe, this guy was so decisive. He directly cut the man in half. These people of the Yanjiao tribe didn't have any scruples. Some people reevaluated the people of the Yanjiao tribe in their hearts. The man who came out of the Dishan tribe just now was an intermediate totem warrior. Not a beginner. He didn't even have time to escape, and was directly cut off. If it were them, could they escape? Many people thought in their hearts, but found that they were not sure. Regardless of whether it was the speed or the strength of that strike, it was frightening. The people of the Dishan tribe looked at the half-body on the ground, and then looked at Xiao Xian, who was staring at them. Many people subconsciously stepped back. If there were no people behind them, they probably would have left the battle. Above, the two young people who saw the scene just now raised their eyebrows. My ancestor! He cut him off with one knife. What's so strange? The wanderers didn't have much power to resist. It's normal to be killed with one knife. Someone in the cave heard them and said. It's not a wanderer, it's a man from the Dishan tribe. He was cut off with one knife. What? The people in the cave were shocked. Is he really just an intermediate totem warrior? Is he the third senior totem warrior hiding in the team? Another young man said. No, he's not a senior, but he's very strong. Besides, he's so young. How could he be a senior totem warrior? He's not from the big tribes in the central area. Hearing the discussion of the two young people outside the cave, the people resting in the cave couldn't sit still. Just now, they also felt the strong murderous intent. They guessed that the battle below had escalated, but they didn't know what had happened. They only felt that the atmosphere in the mountain seemed to be stagnant for a moment. Although it had eased up now, it was far less active than before. Let me see what kind of people you are. You're so surprised. Gula came out and looked at the cave of the Dishan tribe below. Chapter 255. At this time, in the mountain where travelers could rest, most of the people outside the cave were paying attention to the Dishan tribe's cave. They were curious about the strange tribal warriors and Xiao Xian's attack. People who heard the words Yanjiao tribe were also discussing with each other. They couldn't come up with an answer, so they asked people from other tribes. Where did this tribe come from? Why did these people suddenly appear here, and why were they so powerful? The more than 20 totem warriors of the Yanjiao tribe did not pay attention to other people in the mountain. They had been paying attention to the travelers of the Dishan tribe, and were ready to fight at any time. Qi stared at the back of Xiao Xian in front of him, and then looked at the bleeding body at his feet. He glanced at Kun Tu and asked what to do next. Should he fight with these warriors of the tribe, or avoid them? He was not afraid of death. If he could fight with these totem warriors of the tribe, it would be worth dying. With these warriors of the tribe, even if he died, the wanderers who followed him would be taken care of and taken back to the tribe. Kun Tu did not know what to do. Xiao Xian was confronting a senior totem warrior, and the one closest to him was Xiao Xian. Therefore, Kun Tu could not help but look at Xiao Xian. Noticing Kuan-Tu's gaze, Xiao Xian looked sideways and raised his chin to the side of the path outside the cave. There were some raised stones in the shape of stairs, which were the stairs to go up and down the mountain. Even people who had not awakened their totem power could walk on those raised stones. Was he asking them to avoid? Kuan-Tu understood. Once the totemic warriors fought with each other, they would not be able to cry if they were accidentally stabbed to death. Although they were stronger than before, wanderers were wanderers. Compared with Xiao Xian, who had just killed someone, they were not strong enough. Forget it, they'd better not get in the way here. Kuan-Tu signaled Qi and others to go down the mountain with him. The interaction between Xiao Xian and Kuan-Tu was naturally seen by the people of the Dishan tribe. Seeing Kuan-Tu leave, some people wanted to stop them, but they noticed someone staring at them. They looked over and met Xiao Xian's eyes. The soldiers of the Dishan mountain swallowed their saliva and retracted their feet. No one from the Dishan tribe stopped them, and the other onlookers didn't want to get involved. They all made way for Kuan-Tu and the others to go down the mountain. If Xiao Xian and Mai had not appeared, but only Kuan-Tu and the others, these people would naturally have a different attitude. There was a clear difference between wanderers and tribesmen. When Qi left, he glanced at the cave next to the Dishan tribe. He had known several people in the traveling team of the Grassland tribe for more than 10 years. He thought he had a good relationship with them, but they didn't stand up to stop the Dishan tribe. They didn't even say a word for them. When they met Qi's eyes, those people looked away unnaturally. In fact, if the Dishan tribe hadn't made trouble for them, they would have given Qi some herbs. However, since Qi had offended the Dishan tribe, they wouldn't easily intervene. No one wanted to offend the totem warriors of a tribe for a wanderer. After glancing at them, Qi left quickly with Kuan-Tu's day. He didn't blame them, but he wouldn't have a deep relationship with them in the future. When Qi and the others went down the mountain, a man came out of the cave of the Dishan tribe. He was the third senior totem warrior in the traveling team of the Dishan tribe. When he came out, the 3 totem warriors of the Dishan tribe were all there. What's going on? The man came out with a stone stick thicker than a thigh. The stone looked good, and it should be at least superior. The stone stick was a little thin, and could be held with one hand. Probably because it was often used, there were some dents caused by fingers in the place where he held it. It was unknown how many people and animals had died under the stone cudgel. There was still a lot of dried blood on the cudgel that had not been washed away. Or perhaps, he deliberately did not wash it and left it behind to frighten people. A blood-stained stone tool was always more impressive than a smooth stone tool that had nothing. The man who came out listened to a warrior next to him say a few words, and then he burst into laughter. He put the stone stick on the ground and laughed so hard that he couldn't stand up straight. However, the people of the Dishan tribe, who were familiar with his character, trembled in their hearts. The more he laughed, the more murderous he was. With the laughter, the man who held the stone stick quickly gathered murderous intent between his eyebrows, and his face became gloomy and twisted. After laughing, he glanced around like a poisonous snake. He didn't look at the half-body on the ground, but at Xiao Xian. You're courting death. Ma is right. The leader of the Dishan tribe, who was confronting Mai, said. They really didn't need to be afraid of the boy's knife, and they didn't need to panic when they saw the 2 senior totem warriors. He looked at the wanderers who had gone down the mountain with hatred, and then looked directly at Mai. 2 senior totem warriors, so what? More than 20 people are strong, so what? We have 3 senior totem warriors, many intermediate totem warriors, and many junior totem warriors. If we really launch a group attack, how can these people resist? Since they want to die, let's kill them. To survive in this world, strength was not the only thing that mattered. A fierce reputation was also very important. Why could the Dishan tribe easily occupy the big cave on the mountainside, and no other tribe dared to come and rob it? It was because of the fierce reputation of the Dishan tribe. Once a provocator appeared, they would mercilessly kill him, so that others would not dare to resist or provoke them. Only by killing and blood could they spread their fierce reputation and make more people afraid, just like the Wanchur tribe, who lived in the ferocious beast's mountain forest, and made people tremble when they heard the name. Looking at the change of the other side's face, Mai also understood the other side's choice. Without saying anything, his totem power suddenly soared. Totem lines appeared on his face, neck, and exposed arms. The stone knife in his hand seemed to be integrated with Mai's body at this moment. The violent power and the sound of the rapid friction between the body and the air were like the howling of the wild beasts in the forest. Mai, like a fierce predator, rushed to the prey. His stone knife was like the sharp claws of a giant beast that locked on the prey in the forest, directly chopping towards the head of the leader of the travel team of the Wanchur tribe. At the moment when Mai took action, the other people of the Yanjiao tribe also took action almost at the same time. They didn't need any other preparation at all and directly entered the fighting state. This was the tacit understanding they had developed in hunting in the forest time and time again. They didn't need to say anything more, and when it was time to take action, no one would shout nonsense before taking action. In the forest, one more sound would alert the prey. If they shouted loudly before taking action, the people in the hunting team would have starved to death. More than 20 people, almost at the same time, mobilized the totem power in their bodies. At this moment, their momentum soared, like a mountain that suddenly rose from the ground, overturned and pressed towards the Dishan tribe. They completely broke the fierce momentum that the Dishan tribe had accumulated because of the arrival of Huma. The people of the Dishan tribe, who were thinking about weighing the pros and cons, didn't react quickly because of this sudden change. Except for the 3 senior totem warriors and some people who were alert and sensitive, the others were slow for a moment. Those who were slow to react had yet to make a move when the sharp saber chi brought about by the stone saber had already arrived. Just the wind brought about by the swing of the saber could make people feel the ferocity of the saber. Chi 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 chi, more than 10 warriors of the Dishan tribe, who didn't react quickly, were directly chopped. The flashing sharp weapons brought about a bloody aura of slaughter. With the tacit cooperation of more than 20 people, there was no mistake in this sudden attack. Every time it seemed like they did not care about anything, they would always be able to avoid their own people and slash at the enemy. Although there were only more than 20 people, it gave people the feeling that thousands of troops and horses were passing by. Wherever they passed, there were broken limbs and remains, and blood rained in the wind. The wind blew into the mountain, bringing the pungent smell of blood to all parts of the mountain. After seeing this scene, the onlookers, who had been staring at the scene, changed their expressions. Killing happened every day. Here, it was either I kill you or you kill me. Everyone was used to it and was numb to it. However, this was the first time they had seen such a fierce attack. The people of the Dishan tribe were so shocked that their scalps almost jumped up. After they came to themselves, they began to fight back. Mai used almost all his strength in every attack to fight against the leader of the travel team of the Dishan tribe. He still kept the habit of hunting and didn't hide his strength. Facing the leader of the Dishan tribe, he didn't dodge, but directly confronted him in this rude and fierce way. Every step he took was like a giant palm of a heavy fierce beast stepping on the ground. The stones under his feet were certainly broken into pieces, and the stone chips and dust flew everywhere. Boom! The 2 leaders collided. Their strengths met on a narrow path, and neither of them wanted to back down. The moment the ground under their feet collided, the mountain rocks that were originally one piece cracked, and the stones flew out like a blooming stone lotus. On the other side, after the initial shock, Huma was endlessly angry. He didn't expect that the people of the Yanjiao tribe dared to attack him directly. Huma hit the man in front of him with his stick, and rushed to the nearest totem warrior, regardless of his tribesman's life or death. The people who had been around Huma hurriedly scattered and no longer moved forward. If they interfered with Huma's battle, they would be hit by the stick, just like the poor tribesmen. Seeing Huma rushing to Lang Jie, Xiao Xian changed his target and rushed there. Lang Jie could deal with other people, but he was at a disadvantage when fighting against Huma. Unexpectedly, there was a sudden attack from the side. Huma had no time to deal with Lang Ga. He raised his stone stick above his head and collided with the knife. At the moment when he blocked the knife momentum, Huma's eyes could not help but change. Because of the collision, a strong impact came from his wrists, arms and shoulders. Even though he was a senior totem warrior, he could not underestimate this power. Looking at the person who made this attack, Huma was surprised again. It was the young man who had killed the intermediate totem warrior in the team with one attack. Chapter 256. Huma could not help but think. Since Xiao Xian had found him, he naturally would not pay attention to others. Huma moved his body and tilted his stone stick to one side, trying to remove the thread of the knife. However, Huma did not expect that Xiao Xian's next move was much faster than he had imagined. At the moment when the knife in his hand collided with the stone stick, Xiao Xian lifted it up with the help of the reverse force generated by the collision, and then chopped it down again. This kind of chopping was similar to chopping ferocious beasts in hunting. However, this was not the end. The third chop, the fourth chop, Xiao Xian chopped one after another. As long as the stone stick moved a little bit, Huma would not be able to keep his head. Under such intensive attacks, Huma could only raise his stick to resist the attack. The knife chopped the stone stick fiercely, and the stone chips splashed out. The harsh crashing sound was clear again and again in this ring-shaped mountain, even suppressing the sound of other people fighting around. The thunderous and almost breathless attacks made the surrounding people's jaws drop. They all looked over there in a daze. Before the battle, they would not have believed that such a situation would happen. Who was Huma? The travelers who often rested here were naturally familiar with it. It was one of the reasons why the Dishan tribe was notorious. But now, this notorious senior totem warrior of the Dishan tribe was defeated by a young intermediate totem warrior of the Flaming Horns tribe, who came out of nowhere. They didn't know where the Flaming Horns tribe came from, but they didn't expect him to be beaten like this. However, the boy was also strange. He was not a senior totem warrior, but his strength and speed were much higher than that of other intermediate totem warriors. Looking at the other people of the Yanjiao tribe, everyone was surprised again. It seemed that the people of the Yanjiao tribe were a little strange. It was impossible for totem warriors of the same level to gain the upper hand in a one-on-one fight. However, the strangest thing was the boy who beat Huma. They thought that the Dishan tribe would win because there were 2 senior totem warriors on one side and 3 senior totem warriors on the other side. But now, it was hard to judge for a while, but if it continued like this, everyone was not optimistic about the Dishan tribe's chances. It was a kind of overwhelming momentum. Even his aura had lost. What was the point of fighting? Even if they won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory where they would lose an arm or a leg. They would not be able to recover in a short period of time. Therefore, if they wanted to avoid such a situation, the 3 leaders of the traveling team of the Dishan tribe had to change the current situation. Looking at the other 2 sides, the crowd once again looked at Huma and Xiao Xian. The opportunity for the Dishan tribe to turn the situation around depended on Huma. The other 2 were not in a good situation. Although Huma was notorious in this area, he was not a fool. He immediately understood the current situation on his side. Beads of sweat dripped from his forehead, but he didn't bother to wipe them off. He did not expect such a situation. He was actually suppressed by such a young person to the point that he did not even have the time to fight back. Other than defending, he was still defending. Against such an attack, there was nothing he could do. He was only an intermediate totem warrior. Although there was something strange about him, Huma was sure of it. Disgrace, this was simply a disgrace. The angrier Huma was, the more concentrated he was. Between life and death, especially in a fight between masters, one careless mistake would lead to death. Naturally, Huma was in a difficult situation more than once. When Xiao Xian swung the sword again, Huma roared violently, and his totem power increased again, almost to the limit. With a bang, the stone under Huma's feet sank into a pit in an instant. Huma was also short in an instant. Under his feet in the pit, the straw sandals made of vines had already been broken. Huma bent his knees, and at this moment, he was like an arrow on the string, ready to shoot. At the moment when the sword and the stick collided, Huma's full strength broke out. The pit under Huma's feet sank deeper, and the broken stones and stone chips around were shaken up high. If one was close enough, he could even hear some cracking sounds on the stone ground under his feet. This time, Xiao Xian did not chop continuously. His sword was pushed away. With the force of the chop, Xiao Xian retreated and landed on the ground. He did not attack again for a while. Holding the sword, Xiao Xian's hand was bleeding. Withstanding the power of Huma's explosion, Xiao Xian was not completely unscathed. His whole arm was numb. Looking at the stone sword, Xiao Xian found that there was an obvious gap on it. According to Xiao Xian's understanding of this stone sword, it could only withstand 2 attacks from Huma, and would be broken when the 3rd attack came. Above, the young man who had been watching the battle below said excitedly, "I didn't expect that the boy could push Huma like this. Looking at his age, he should be about the same as me." He was happy to see Huma being defeated. But another young man next to him was not so optimistic. He looked a little more dignified. "It's not good. That boy is really pitiful." Coming out of the cave, Gu La, who saw the scene just now, nodded and said lightly, "Just now, the boy didn't kill Huma in one breath. I'm afraid that he will be at a disadvantage later." The boy's style of fighting, his advantage lies in his explosive attack and surprise attack. When he attacked Huma just now, it was also a surprise attack. Otherwise, it was difficult to achieve such a situation of suppression. But now, Huma has recovered, and the boy will not have a second chance. Indeed, even if he is stronger than others, the boy is only an intermediate totem warrior. This is undeniable. The man next to Gula said. Gula's eyes moved, and he reminded them, "Did you notice that the kid mobilized the totem power faster than the other 2 senior totem warriors? The faster the totem power mobilized, the more skillful he is in controlling the totem power." Hearing this, the others were silent. They really did not notice this just now. If so, it was really shocking. The boy was not worse than those in the central tribes, not to mention that he was still young. One of them clicked his tongue and said, "Where did this Flaming Horns tribe come from? It is reasonable to say that with such strength, they should be famous. Is it too far from here? More than 20 people could defeat the team of the Dishan tribe. What about the whole tribe? How many people were as strange as that boy?" While they were talking above, the situation in front of the cave of the Dishan tribe was still going on. Huma, who came out of the sunken pit, exuded a violent aura. He walked barefoot on the ground. Wherever he passed, the broken stones were crushed into stone chips. His bloodshot eyes were as if he wanted to devour people. Seeing Huma like this, the surrounding people of the Dishan tribe could not help but retreat again. For a time, there was an empty field. There were only Huma and Xiao Xian on the other side of the field. Huma's toes scratched the ground. His figure flashed, and he rushed straight toward Xiao Xian. Every step he took formed a dent in the ground, and the ground shook quickly. Stone chips and dust were raised high. Huma's arm, which was holding the stone stick, swelled and became thicker. With the shaking of his shoulders, his arm was like a whip, whipping toward Xiao Xian. Wherever his arm passed, the air whistled. Xiao Xian listened carefully to the surrounding movements. His eyes flashed. He did not retreat but moved forward. When he was about to fight with Huma, he suddenly changed his steps. The strong momentum just now seemed to dissipate in an instant. He was like a slippery and cunning loach. He turned his body and changed his direction. The original attack was changed into a retreat, and he quickly retreated a few meters. Boom! The stone stick hit the ground, and the ground shook again. Where the stone stick hit, there was another dent in the ground. Huma did not stop, but continued to attack. Just like when Xiao Xian attacked at the beginning, he did not give Xiao Xian any time to breathe. The huge stone stick seemed to be weightless, and it was integrated with his arm. It was like a rainstorm, and every time it hit, it was like a heavy hammer hit. The splashing stone chips, like blooming flowers, constantly scattered and withered. The surrounding people also avoided it. No one wanted to be shrouded in such a dangerous area. Therefore, even though there were many people of the Dishan tribe, many people did not take action, especially around the three leaders. They even left an empty field. Bang! Another heavy blow hit the ground, but it did not hit the target. Xiao Xian's dodging was really slippery. Even the calm onlookers could not figure out why Xiao Xian dodged like that. Retreat? No. Go in? No. Sometimes that guy even appeared in the previous position. Was that confidence? Or was he looking for death? Above, the people who had been paying attention to the battle looked at Gu La. Just now, Gu La said that Xiao Xian would definitely be at a disadvantage, but now it seemed that it was not certain who would be at a disadvantage. Gu La could not help blushing. He really did not expect that Xiao Xian would suddenly change his style. Well, look, keep watching. Gu La said. Hu Ma's stone stick was probably the most seriously damaged in the past year. Even the best stone could not withstand such heavy blows again and again. Crack! Crack! The ground under his feet made a cracking sound. Such a sound was not made by one or two stones, but by the whole thing. It was made by the mountain. The people with keen hearing could not help but be stunned. For the travelers who had experienced a lot, such a sound was not strange. The people of the Yanjiao tribe also felt the same. For a moment, it seemed that the pause button was suddenly pressed in the field, and the battle stopped. Probably because of the battle just now, a protruding stone was broken. Now, the stone was detached from the mountain, rolling down and hitting the walkway in front of the cave of the Dishan tribe, making a bang. Crack, 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 a clearer sound came again. No one made a move, but the ground under their feet was trembling. The mountain was going to collapse. They did not know whether other places were also collapsing. No matter whether it would collapse now or not, it was better to avoid this place first. Even senior totem warriors could not be intact if they fell or were injured. No one wanted to be injured because of this. People of the Dishan tribe and the Yanjiao tribe had no time to fight. Some of the people of the Dishan tribe went into the cave, and some retreated to both sides of the walkway. Except for Xiao Xian. Just when everyone wanted to avoid, Xiao Xian suddenly stepped on the ground and rushed towards Hu Ma. He waved his sword at Hu Ma, who was about to run to the entrance of the cave. Hu Ma was so angry that his lungs hurt. He did not expect that at this time, Xiao Xian would attack regardless of anything. Chapter 257. Seeing that Xiao Xian attacked again, Hu Ma could only raise his stick to block the attack of the knife again. One knife. Two knives. The ground under Hu Ma's feet shook because of the two fierce attacks, and the cracking sound became faster. Just when everyone thought that there would be another intensive attack like the beginning, the third knife came. With a bang, the knife in Xiao Xian's hand was cut off from the gap. When the third knife was cut, Xiao Xian lowered his body and his momentum suddenly changed. He slid past Hu Ma flexibly. The broken half of the knife was still held in Xiao Xian's hand. Like a gust of wind, Hu Ma was cut on his waist before he could escape. Hu Ma did not expect such a situation to happen. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and slightly avoided it. Xiao Xian only had half of the knife in his hand. If the knife was intact, Hu Ma would probably be cut in two like the man who was cut in two at the beginning. Although the wound was not fatal, it was not small. Cold sweat dripped down. Hu Ma was really frightened by this knife. Feeling the vibration of the mountain under his feet, Hu Ma did not care about anything else. He did not even cover his wound, and ran quickly to the cave with his stick. At this time, Kun Tu and others who had already gone down the mountain looked up anxiously. After all, they were not real totem warriors. Their eyesight was limited, so they could not see the scene above clearly. They could only guess the situation above from the discussions of the travelers around them. Like others, they were not optimistic about the 20 people of Yanjiao, especially the senior totem warriors. In such a battle, one more master meant one more guarantee of victory. No matter what, Kun Tu and Qi Yi felt that Yanjiao was at a disadvantage. However, judging from the discussions they heard, the situation above was really different from what they imagined. Kun Tu, I can't see clearly. Tell me, who is fighting with whom? After living on the grassland for a long time, Qi Yi naturally heard of the Dishan tribe, which had a bad reputation. He also heard the name of Huma. However, Qi Yi really couldn't think of anyone who could fight against Huma and not fall into a disadvantageous position. He even slashed Huma. Kun Tu couldn't see clearly either. He thought hard about the 20 or so people who came with him. Among them, there was only one person who agreed with the discussion of the travelers. Are you Xiao Xian? It should be him. Apart from him, I can't think of anyone else who is the youngest intermediate totem warrior who uses a stone knife. But Huma is a senior totem warrior, one of the top 3 in the traveling team of the Dishan tribe. Qi Yi couldn't believe it. Kun Tu raised his eyes. Did you see when Xiao Xian cut the intermediate totem warrior in half? Qi Yi fell silent. That saber strike had indeed given Qi Yi quite a shock. Crack, 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 crack. Above them, the sound of the mountain collapsing became clearer. All the people under the cave of the Dishan tribe hurriedly avoided it. If that part of the mountain collapsed, they would be seriously injured, even if they didn't die. What's more, the passage in front of the cave at that height was the widest in the whole crater. The people who could rest in the cave at that height were all powerful. After hundreds of years of development, the passage of about 10 meters wide was naturally formed. In comparison, there were only a few tribes resting in the caves near the top of the mountain. They were almost exclusively used by the tribes. No one was stupid enough to rob them. Therefore, there were fewer disputes and fewer people moving around. The opening of the passageway was limited. Therefore, looking down from the top, the protruding passage at the level where the Dishan tribe rested was the widest. If it collapsed, the threat to the people below was naturally not to be underestimated. Seeing that the situation was not good, the people below hurriedly avoided that section. The people at the bottom of the mountain also hurriedly took away the animals tied there. It was not fun if that section fell down. In front of the cave of the Dishan tribe, Huma heard another bang behind him. It was the sound of people's footsteps on the ground. Huma gritted his teeth and sped up towards the cave. The wound on his waist spurted blood because of the violent running. Seeing the man with a bow at the entrance of the cave, Huma roared, "Shoot him to death." Huma also knew that if he could shoot him to death, he would have done so long ago. But at this time, he needed someone to stop Xiao Xian. He didn't want to fall down with this section of the mountain. The archers in the cave reacted quickly. They pulled their bows and shot at Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian's footsteps paused a little to avoid those arrows. He stamped on the ground vigorously, and some egg-sized stones were shaken up. Seeing Xiao Xian stamping on the ground vigorously again, many people wanted to vomit blood. Damn it, it's about to collapse, and you're still stamping on it. Crack, crack, crack. Clear cracks appeared under Xiao Xian's feet and extended outward, connecting with a crack on the mountain wall. Boom! A section of the mountain with a length of more than 30 meters collapsed nearly an arm's height. Many stones of different sizes collapsed from the mountain and rolled down. The people below saw that the situation was not right and dodged, so they were not hit by the falling stones. However, looking at the rolling stones, the travelers in the surroundings could not help but tremble. No matter which side they were from, no matter where they came from, the travelers were all frightened by this sudden change. How long had it been since the Dishan tribe and the Flaming Horns tribe started to fight? Why did it collapse just like that? What kind of strength was this? No wonder that many tribes did not allow senior totem warriors to fight. The destructive power was indeed too great. Xiao Xian did not retreat because of the collapse of the mountain. He swung his arm that was holding the broken sword. The body of the sword collided with the trembling rocks, pushing the rocks away with great force. The rocks did not shatter, but they were still as fast as meteors. The sound of bones and bodies being pierced was not obvious in the rumbling of the mountain, but the people who had just shot the arrows in the cave fell down one by one. Mai and the others did not delay. Xiao Xian's behavior was not impulsive, but to attract the attention of the archers at the entrance of the cave, giving them a chance to evacuate. More than 20 people of the Yanjiao tribe were also injured. 3 of them could not walk. If the archers shot at them, they would not be able to escape. Fortunately, the archers had all their attention on Xiao Xian, who was approaching the entrance of the cave, so the others could take their injured companions away as soon as possible. On the other hand, although there were many broken limbs and corpses on the ground of the Dishan tribe, there were still some people who could not move. However, they were all abandoned. Seeing the archers fall down one by one, Huma pushed the people next to him aside and took out his strong bow. This bow was made by himself with the best horns in the tribe and bamboo traded from the Mang tribe with a lot of livestock. It was different from the bows just now. He put the bow on the string. Chirp! There was a violent sound of tearing in the air, and a strong arrow flew out from the string. This arrow was much faster than the arrows shot by the archers, and its lethality was also several times stronger. Xiao Xian did not avoid it, but turned his wrist and blocked the arrow with his knife. Bang! The stone arrowhead of the arrow was broken, leaving a dent on Xiao Xian's knife. Feeling the strength in his hand, Xiao Xian's eyes brightened and he looked at the bow in Huma's hand in the cave. He did not know whether this was the best bow they had. If it was stronger, Xiao Xian wanted to find materials to make a bow that the totem warriors could draw with all their strength after returning to the tribe. In that case, it would be a great help to deal with the Wanshi tribe in the future. It was not enough. If the bow was stronger, and the strength was greater. Seeing that Xiao Xian blocked the arrow, Huma did not stop. He took out 3 arrows, put them on the string, and shot them almost at the same time. After that, he quickly took out 3 more arrows from the quiver. Taking out the arrows, drawing the bow, and shooting them, all in a short time, which showed his proficiency. However, the strength that the bow could bear was limited. Huma, a senior totem warrior, had to suppress the strength when he wanted to shoot these arrows. Otherwise, the bow would be broken if the strength exceeded the strength that the bow could bear. Huma's purpose was not to shoot Xiao Xian. It would be better if he could shoot him to death. If not, he could force him to fall down with the mountain. Xiao Xian didn't move forward anymore. He stomped on the ground to avoid the 3 arrows that were shot at him. He then waved his broken sword to block the arrows that followed. Unfortunately, he only had half of his sword left, so blocking the arrows took a lot of effort. If the sword was whole, it would be easier. Seeing that the people in the tribe had retreated, Xiao Xian stamped his foot on the ground. The rocks on the cliff seemed to have been hit by a strong earthquake, and the gravel fell from the cliff. Large pieces of rocks, which used to be the passage in front of the cave, were cut off from the whole mountain. This time, they did not fall intermittently, but directly collapsed. In the huge ring-shaped mountain, the sound of the mountain sliding down covered everything. The people below hid, and continued to watch the scene where the rocks could not fall. Some horses, which were tied to a safe place at the foot of the mountain, still stamped the ground anxiously after hearing the sound. Not only the broken place, but also other places were affected by the collapse. Therefore, for a time, the people who had been standing outside the cave ran into the cave. Especially on the side of the Dishan tribe, the situation was more serious. Just now, one of them was almost hit by a falling stone. Huma stood at the entrance of the cave and did not dare to stretch out his neck. From time to time, stones would fall. He was afraid that he would be hit in the head if he stretched out his neck. Seeing that Xiao Xian was standing on the rock and falling down, Huma was relieved. Even if Xiao Xian didn't die from the fall, he should at least be injured. In that case, he did not need to worry too much. Touching the wound on his waist, which was still bleeding, Huma's eyes were hazy. He did not expect that he would be forced into such a situation, and even get injured. Even if he was used to life and death, he could not calm down when it was his turn. He must kill them, all of them. Huma thought. However, when he just put down the bow and was about to find herbs to apply to the wound, he heard the person next to him exclaim, "What's wrong?" Huma did not look for herbs and asked the person next to him. There is." The person over there pointed outside. Huma looked outside. When he stretched out his head, a gray shadow flashed. With the sound of the air being broken, a broken knife cut his neck. When he thought he was temporarily safe, he was killed. Puff, blood splashed. Before Huma fell to the ground, he saw the person who should have fallen with the mountain, holding an eagle's claw and rising from below. Chapter 258. No one had expected that an eagle would suddenly fly down from the ring-shaped mountain, and such a big one at that. If it stood on the ground, it would be as tall as 2 people. That was quite rare. However, the people of the grassland tribes were familiar with that kind of eagle, and the travelers resting here had also seen it. After seeing the cha-cha, the people who had been shouting about the collapse of the mountain turned their attention to it again. Then, they all looked at a cave near the top of the mountain. In front of the cave, Gula and the others were also stunned. That is, a giant mountain eagle. The 2 young men who had been watching below were shocked. So, the injury on Shan Dao's body was caused by that eagle, the other man said. Shan Dao was the name of the eagle they had brought out this time. It was also raised by Gula since childhood. At this moment, the injured Shan Dao was recovering in the cave. How could the Yanjiao tribe have a giant mountain eagle? Didn't they say that giant mountain eagles don't get close to humans? An older man from the Hui tribe said. They had always thought that only their tribe was close to and liked by the giant mountain eagles. Apart from their tribe, there were only a few tribes that could raise giant mountain eagles, and the Feather tribe was barely one of them. Even if they could raise a giant mountain eagle, it would be very difficult to raise one. It might not even be able to be tamed after it grew up, and there were many cases where the eagle would bite back at them. How could they easily accept humans with their arrogance? However, here, the Yanjiao tribe, which had come out of nowhere, had one as well, and this one was even stronger than the one they had brought out. Judging from the size, it was similar. However, if the injury on Shan Dao's body was really caused by this eagle, then the lethality of this giant mountain eagle was too shocking. They had been watching the show with the others, but they didn't expect to see such a thing. Gula, what should we do? The people next to him all looked at Gula. This time, Gula was the leader of the team, so he had to make all the decisions. Gula thought for a while and was about to say something, but then they heard a loud and clear eagle cry from below. Tisk! After Cha-Cha lifted Xiao Xian up, Xiao Xian jumped down to where Mai and the others were standing. Cha-Cha flew to the top of the cave of the Dishan tribe. Its big claws dug into the stone wall, and then it dug out the stones on the mountain wall one by one. Some loose stones that had not fallen were dug out of the mountain and thrown down. The people of the Dishan tribe did not dare to stick their heads out of the cave, because once they stuck their heads out, they would be smashed. After scratching for a while, Cha-Cha decided to leave. This place was too small and there were too many restrictions. It didn't like the fact that there were people with bows and arrows in their hands. Just as he was about to soar higher, he heard the cry of an eagle from above. Who? In a cave near the top of the mountain, a wounded giant mountain eagle that was missing a lot of feathers rushed out. Cha-Cha was enraged when he saw the eagle rushing out. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he flew up and was about to attack with his claws. Shan Dao, come back! Gula was so anxious that he wanted to rush out himself. If he could fly, he would have already flown over. Looking at the condition of the other eagle, and then looking at his own eagle, everyone knew who would win. Xiao Xian also hurriedly blew the whistle to tell Cha-Cha not to be impulsive. When the travelers who were resting in the mountain saw the 2 eagles, they were more and more surprised. At the same time, they re-evaluated the strength of the Yanjiao tribe. This tribe was really much more complicated than they had imagined. When this was over, they had to inquire about it carefully. Xiao Xian had no time to care about the Dishan tribe. He signaled to Mai and climbed up. When he arrived at the entrance of the cave where Gu La and the others were resting, Xiao Xian saw the wounded giant mountain eagle standing next to a man. There was no obvious hostility in his eyes, but more curiosity. Looking at the others, Xiao Xian knew what to do and made a gesture. Because of the sudden intervention of Gu La and the others, Cha-Cha flew up to avoid the threat. Seeing Xiao Xian's gesture, he flew down again. Although the passage in front of the cave at this height was not wide, Cha-Cha could still stand on it. Standing behind Xiao Xian, Cha-Cha felt like he had a backer. He became bolder again and screamed at the other man and the eagle. He seemed to be laughing at the other side for asking for help. Gu La observed the eagle closely. It looked very similar to the eagles living in his tribe, but he always felt that there were some differences. Even if he called another eagle of the same size from the tribe, it would still be defeated. Gu La of the Hui tribe. Gu La said. Xiao Xian raised his eyebrows and smiled. Xiao Xian of the Yanjiao tribe. Seeing the smile in Xiao Xian's eyes, Gu La and the others were a little surprised. This kind of smile was not the kind that hid a knife, nor was it flattering. It was more like a friendly smile. However, the two young warriors thought that Xiao Xian must have heard that they were from the Hui tribe. After all, who didn't know that the Hui tribe was strong on the grassland? They didn't want to offend the strong, so they showed such an attitude. At this moment, the people of the Dishan tribe all hoped that the Hui tribe and the Yanjiao tribe would fight, because they had suffered heavy losses. Just now, Huma was cut down, the leader of the team was seriously injured, and another senior totem warrior lost an arm. The situation was even worse. It seemed that they could not hold on for long. If the fight continued, they were afraid that the whole team would be wiped out. However, the atmosphere above was not as tense as other people thought. Xiao Xian had a good impression of the Hui tribe. The ancestors of the Yanjiao tribe had a good relationship with the Hui tribe, and it was because of the eagle that they had met. Do you know our tribe? Gu La asked. I've heard of it. Xiao Xian said. The young man behind Gu La curled his lips. Of course, he had heard of it. The Hui tribe was strong on the grassland. Looking at Shan Dao, who was covered with wounds, he comforted him by touching his feathers. Later, Gu La will help you teach the Yanjiao tribe a lesson. As for why Gu La came forward instead of him, well, he couldn't defeat Xiao Xian. Just when the people of the Hui tribe thought that Xiao Xian would tell them the answer in their hearts, they heard Xiao Xian say, "The first foreign tribe I met was from the Hui tribe." Oh? What is it? Gu La just asked casually. He originally wanted to ask about the giant eagle behind Xiao Xian. It's a big stone card with your tribe's totem pattern. As Xiao Xian's voice fell, Gu La's eyes, which were originally focused on Cha-Cha, suddenly turned to Xiao Xian. He looked at Xiao Xian from head to toe, as if he had never seen Xiao Xian before. His face became serious. Staring at Xiao Xian, he asked in a low voice, "Where did you get that stone card?" "A giant eagle gave it to me." Hearing Xiao Xian's words, Gu La didn't say anything, but the young man behind him couldn't help but say, "Nonsense. How could a giant eagle give you a stone card?" "Shut up." Gu La scolded the person behind him. "I'm telling the truth. That eagle's foot was drawn with your tribe's totem pattern." Xiao Xian didn't get angry in the face of the questioning, and continued, "That eagle was very big. A layer of skin fell off its foot, and the drawing wasn't clear." Hearing Xiao Xian's description, Gu La and the others thought of something. Their bodies trembled, and their breathing became irregular. In the tribe, there was only one eagle that fit Xiao Xian's description and left at that time, and that eagle's status in the tribe was no lower than the chief's. Why would the people of the Yanjiao tribe meet that eagle? Why would that eagle give away the stone card so easily? It should have returned safely, right? I hope to see it again in the future. Xiao Xian said. He really wanted to see that giant eagle again. Yes, it went back, and it's doing very well now. The shock in Gu La's heart had subsided, and his face was no longer serious. Instead, he showed a big smile, opened his arms, walked toward Xiao Xian, and gave Xiao Xian a hug. This was their way of expressing joy. Nice to meet you, Gula said. No matter what the specific situation was, the Hui tribe didn't need to be hostile to the person who could make that eagle give away the stone card willingly. After seeing Gula's reaction, the travelers, who had been paying attention to the scene above, were shocked. What the fuck, what happened up there? Why didn't the people of the Hui tribe and the Yanjiao tribe fight? Instead, they acted like friends who hadn't seen each other for a long time. Different from the shocked travelers, the people of the Dishan tribe were pale at the moment. Chapter 259. Mai heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Xiao Xian chatting happily with the person above. It was the first time for them to come here, and they knew from Kun too that the higher they went, the stronger the tribes in the caves would be. They had just defeated the Dishan tribe, so they were very tired and didn't have time to check their injuries. Their fighting capacity had decreased a lot. If they fought with another strong grassland tribe, the Yanjiao tribe would be at a disadvantage. After all, they had fewer people. Moreover, Mai felt that the man above, named Gula, was much stronger than the leader of the Dishan tribe. He was not sure if he could defeat him. Looking at the cave of the Dishan tribe, Mai's eyes became serious again. When hunting ferocious beasts in the forest, it was better to kill them all at once. Otherwise, they might encounter unexpected counterattacks and threats like the thorn black wind. Mai was about to ask the warriors who were not seriously injured to go with him to kill the remaining members of the traveling team of the Dishan tribe. Suddenly, he heard the leader of the traveling team of the Dishan tribe shout up, "Leader Gula, I have something to say to you." Mai's hand, which was about to strike, paused. He gestured to the others to stay put for the time being. Although they had heard about the Hui tribe from other tribes, they were not familiar with them. Mai didn't know how the people of the Hui tribe would react, so he stopped for the time being and waited for the next situation. The leader of the Dishan tribe had already noticed Mai's killing intent. When he found that the Hui tribe didn't fight with the Yanjiao tribe, he came up with another idea to get out of trouble. Gula frowned. He didn't want to intervene in the affairs between the Flaming Horns tribe and the Dishan tribe. The rule here was that whoever was stronger was right. If there were conflicts between the two tribes, they could fight. If they won, they were right. If they lost, they had to retreat or be killed. Therefore, even if the whole team of the Dishan tribe was killed, the people here would not say that the Yanjiao tribe had done anything wrong. However, why did the Dishan tribe ask him to join them? They must understand the basic rules, especially the people of the Dishan tribe, who had killed many teams before. Unless they had something that could convince the people of the Hui tribe to intervene. Gula lowered his eyes so that no one could see what he was thinking. When he raised his head again, he smiled at Xiao Xian and said, "Wait a moment." This meant that he was telling Xiao Xian that he would wait for the people below to come up. Xiao Xian did not argue. He raised his hand to stop Cha-Cha, who wanted to fight with Shan Dao. The leader of the traveling team of Dishan climbed up with blood all over his body. He quickly glanced at Xiao Xian with deep fear and vigilance. Then he walked over and whispered something to Gula. The two of them went into the cave to have a secret talk. Seeing the change in Gula's expression, Xiao Xian sighed in his heart. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to wipe out this team this time. Walking to the edge, Xiao Xian looked down and signaled Mai to treat their wounds first. About 5 minutes later, Gula and the leader of the traveling team of Dishan came out. Gula looked normal, but the latter looked worse, as if his flesh had been cut off. They must have promised something that could move Gula. When the leader of the Dishan tribe went down, Gula asked Xiao Xian, "Who's in charge here?" Xiao Xian shouted down, "Mai, there's something." Mai was prepared. After coming up, he said to Gula, "Mai of the Yanjiao tribe." Gula of the Hui tribe. Gula did not put on airs. Partly because of the mystery of the Yanjiao tribe, and partly because of the giant eagle that Xiao Xian had mentioned. "Let the people of the Dishan tribe go," Gula said and pointed to the side. 3 people of the Hui tribe went down with him and brought up a few big bags. "This is their compensation." When the bags were opened, there were a lot of jade, shells and other crystals similar to the water moonstones of the drumming tribe, which could be used for trading. If they were exchanged for water moonstones, it would be more than twice as much as what the drumming tribe had given them. I thought for a while and said, okay. Gula only said, let them go. As for what would happen after they left, he didn't care. Therefore, the hidden meaning in his words was that the next time they met, they could do whatever they wanted, and he would not interfere. Mai also understood. In the 2 years before returning to the old haunt, the former leaders of the hunting teams were called by the shaman for training, so they naturally thought differently from others. Below, the people of the Dishan tribe left with those who were not seriously injured. As for those who were seriously injured, most of them were abandoned. Lang Jie and the others wanted to say something, but were stopped by Wei. Let's talk about it later. Since the Hui tribe intervened, this battle could not go on. In addition to the things that the Dishan tribe took out, there was also a wooden box, which was given by Gu La. There were many rare herbs in it. Of course, for the Yanjiao tribe, they had seen many good herbs, but now they were far from enough, and these herbs could be used in an emergency. Mai said a few more words to Gu La and made sure that Gu La meant that he would not interfere in the future. Then he left to apply medicine to the injured warriors. When Mai went down, he only took a wooden box with herbs in his hand. He did not take the other animal skin bags with jade, shells and other things. Hey, don't you want these? A man next to Gula shouted. As soon as his voice fell, a gust of wind swept across his face. Several bags on the ground were all grabbed by Cha-Cha and then flew down. The people of the Hui tribe looked at Cha-Cha and glanced at Shan Dao next to Gu La. They thought, this eagle can't be compared with other eagles. Look at him, he can help carry the bags. Even catching a rabbit is a blessing. Let's go in and talk. Gu La pointed to the cave where they rested and said to Xiao Xian. Okay. Although Xiao Xian was not happy with the Hui tribe's intervention, he saw that Gu La seemed to have something to say, so he did not refuse at the moment. After entering the cave, Gu La asked people to guard the entrance and not let anyone get close. Do you know what he said to me just now? Gu La asked. This, he referred to the leader of the Dishan tribe. No. Xiao Xian did not expect that Gu La would say this to him. Gu La lowered his voice and said, the fire crystal mine. Xiao Xian's eyelids twitched. No wonder the people of the Hui tribe were willing to help the Dishan tribe. It turned out that it was related to the fire crystal. This was indeed a great attraction. In the depths of the grassland, the mine is not big. The Dishan tribe has found it, but they haven't been able to eat it yet. Someone stronger than them is fighting for it. Speaking of this, Gu La sneered, I know what they are thinking. They want us to compete with the other side, so that the Dishan tribe can take advantage of us. Gu La paused and asked Xiao Xian, do you want to go and have a look? Xiao Xian shook his head, since it's in the grassland, we won't go there. It's too far. Gu La actually wanted to sound out the situation of the Yanjiao tribe according to Xiao Xian's reaction, but he did not expect to get such an answer. Where is your tribe located? If we go out again in the future, maybe we will visit the Yanjiao tribe. Gu La said. Oh, not too far. Xiao Xian pointed to a direction, go straight in that direction, in the ferocious beast mountain forest. Gu La, the other people of the Hui tribe who had been listening to them, even Shan Dao, who stretched his neck to look out, made a strange cry. Gu La couldn't keep a straight face. I remember that there seems to be only the Wanshi tribe there. Yes. Xiao Xian nodded, it's next to the Wanshi tribe. But they are outside the forest, and we are inside the forest. He asked some more questions about the Yanjiao tribe, but Xiao Xian did not answer more. Gu La also knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him if he continued to ask, so he talked about the matters of the Hui tribe. At the same time, he also talked about his experience of raising Shan Dao. It's not easy. Gu La sighed. Xiao Xian nodded in agreement while listening, it's really not easy to raise them. Yes. Speaking of this, Gu La became excited again, at that time, Shan Dao was the smallest egg in the nest. He was only this big. Gula said, waving his hands to show the size. Xiao Xian looked at the size of the egg that Gula was talking about. When it stood up, it was higher than his knee, and this was the smallest egg in the nest. Because of this, Xiao Xian's expression became more and more strange. Gula was talking excitedly. When Shan Dao hatched, he was the weakest among his brothers and sisters. After all, he was the smallest egg. People used to say that in the nest of giant mountain eagles, the smallest egg was difficult to hatch. Even if it hatched, it would be difficult to survive, let alone grow up. When I brought Shan Dao here, I didn't have much hope. But who would have thought that Shan Dao not only survived, but also became the strongest among his brothers and sisters? Even in the whole tribe, he is the strongest among the mountain eagles of the same size. Gu Lei's face was filled with pride as he spoke. In the Hui tribe, this was indeed worth showing off. But he didn't expect that Shan Dao would encounter Cha-Cha the first time he went out with others. Not only did he lose, but he also lost miserably. The competition between giant mountain eagles had always been like this. In the Hui tribe, there were many fights between mountain eagles, but some were worse than this. Gula didn't think that they were bullying each other. Giant mountain eagles grew up through repeated challenges. That way, they would have a greater chance to overcome more difficult obstacles in the future. This was why Gula wasn't too angry when he saw Shan Dao lose miserably. Thinking of this, Gula curiously asked Xiao Xian, I think Cha-Cha also grew very well. He is very strong, almost the strongest among the mountain eagles of this size I have ever seen. When Cha-Cha hatched, its egg must have been very big, right? Xiao Xian. What are you laughing at? How big is it? Don't worry, it's not an exaggeration. I have seen bigger mountain eagle eggs. So, boy, tell me, how big was Cha-Cha before? Xiao Xian stretched out his index finger and thumb and said, about this big. Gula. You think I have never seen a giant mountain eagle's egg? Xiao Xian was also helpless. He really didn't know that eagle eggs were divided into different sizes, and the difference was so big. When Cha-Cha hatched from that egg, he could hold it with one hand and almost cooked it. Chapter 260. Xiao Xian wouldn't tell anyone about how he almost cooked Cha-Cha. If he did, the people of the Hui tribe would be more agitated than him. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Several young people of the Hui tribe couldn't hold back their anger. They were just pretending to cut wood elsewhere, but now they ran over as if they had been stabbed in the ass. They looked at Xiao Xian and said, you must be lying. Xiao Xian looked calm, I'm not lying. Gula carefully observed Xiao Xian's expression. Seeing that Xiao Xian really wasn't joking, he asked, your eagle. What did it eat when it was growing up? What did it eat? It has a wide range of food, but it eats most ferocious beasts. Xiao Xian said. The people of the Hui tribe fell silent again. If they hadn't seen Cha-Cha and Shan Dao beaten up like this, they would have jumped up and pointed at Xiao Xian's nose when they heard Xiao Xian's answer, you're bullshitting. But it was the truth. No, there must be other reasons. Gula shook his head and denied this. There are many ferocious beasts on the grassland, but I've never seen anything like what you're talking about. To be honest, Xiao Xian, the eagle eggs you're talking about can't be counted as real giant mountain eagles. They won't live long because they don't have the strength to go to Eagle Mountain. Have you heard of Eagle Mountain? Only those that have been to Eagle Mountain are real giant mountain eagles. Of course, strictly speaking, Shan Dao isn't a real giant mountain eagle. But when he feels he's strong enough, he'll naturally go there, just like his parents. And the small eagle eggs you're talking about, their parents haven't been to Eagle Mountain, so they're different from Shan Dao's parents. So, do you mean that Cha-Cha's parents are not real giant mountain eagles? They are not big, so the eggs they give birth to are also small? That's right. Gula believed that no one knew more about the giant mountain eagle than the people of the Hui tribe. Oh, maybe it has been to Eagle Mountain, Xiao Xian said. The atmosphere in the cave stagnated. Everyone stared at Xiao Xian as if they had seen a ghost. In the past, it disappeared for a while, and when it came back, it became bigger, Xiao Xian continued. The cave remained silent. Their first reaction was disbelief, but after thinking about it, it seemed that this was the only explanation. Outside the cave, Cha-Cha, who had already delivered the items to Mai and the others, flew one round in the air. When he didn't see Xiao Xian, he walked to the entrance of the cave and stretched his neck to look inside. Gula only told the guards not to let anyone near the cave, but he did not tell them not to let the eagles near. Therefore, when Cha-Cha approached, not only did the people at the entrance not block him, they even made way for him. It was a pity that Cha-Cha did not go in. Cha-Cha had a lot of injuries when he fought with Shan Dao, but now, he had almost recovered. He was still alive and full of energy. Looking at Shan Dao, he was completely strong. Gula sighed, I believe you. Cha-Cha had been to Eagle Mountain. That was why he was much stronger than other eagles of the same size, and his recovery ability was also much higher. Cha-Cha and Shan Dao had different starting points. In comparison, Cha-Cha's starting point was much lower, but because he had been to Eagle Mountain, survived, and experienced a transformation, he directly reversed his disadvantage and now was better than Shan Dao and the others. Because Shan Dao and the others had never been to Eagle Mountain. It was simply amazing. If they had some doubts when Xiao Xian mentioned the giant eagle before, now, there was no doubt left in the Hui tribe. Where is Eagle Mountain? Someone asked Xiao Xian. How would I know? Xiao Xian answered. He knew, but he would not say. However, the people of the Hui tribe did not doubt Xiao Xian's words. The giant mountain eagles would only go there by themselves. The Hui tribe had lived with the giant mountain eagles for so long, but no one had been there except some ancestors a long time ago, and the records left were not detailed. When Xiao Xian walked out of the cave, Gula was very enthusiastic. If you go on a long journey in the future, you can go to the Hui tribe to have a look. We have many giant mountain eagles. After a pause, Gula added, as for the Dishan tribe, you don't have to worry. We don't have to worry. Xiao Xian laughed, we can kill them once, and we can kill them again. It was a bit arrogant, but people who had seen the Dishan traveling team would not doubt Xiao Xian's words. Gula still wanted to say something, but thought it was unnecessary, so he stopped. Xiao Xian left the cave and went down. Mai and the others had occupied the cave where the Dishan tribe had rested before. How are your injuries? Xiao Xian asked. Before going up, he had roughly checked the situation and found that the warriors were not in danger of dying. It's okay. Some of them probably can't walk for the time being. Let them stay in the carriage. Mai said. They did not intend to stay here for a long time. Kun Tu and the others were still waiting at the foot of the mountain, but because the totem warriors of the Yanjiao tribe were there, the other people who were resting did not do anything to them. The Dishan tribe was an example. After packing up, Mai led the people down the mountain. Where are the others? Mai asked. It's a little far from here. I'll lead the way. Chi-E said quickly. He did not know whether he was nervous or excited, but he felt comfortable. When they walked out of the mountain, Kun Tu looked back and sighed again, I didn't expect that it would collapse. There were many people fighting before, so there were traces on the passage. The mountain was not strong, and today it experienced such a fierce attack. It's reasonable that it collapsed. Xiao Xian explained. Mai looked at the people with Chi-E and asked, do you have any opinions about my decision to give up chasing the Dishan tribe? No. No. Chi-E and the others said quickly. They really did not have any opinions. So many people of the Dishan tribe had been killed. Among the 3 senior totem warriors, 1 was dead, and 1 was disabled. Only the leader of the traveling team was left. For Chi-E and the others, this was a good revenge. Besides, as wanderers, they knew the situation better than others. At that time, Mai's decision was indeed the best. If we can't solve it, when you awaken in the future, you can continue to take revenge. Lang Jie said with a smile. Awakening, hearing this, Kun Tu, Chi Yi, and the others all breathed heavily. At this time, Xiao Xian suddenly said, "You may not be able to take revenge." Why? This time, even Mai looked at Xiao Xian in confusion. You mean the people of the Hui tribe will help them? Lang Jie asked. No, it's the opposite. Xiao Xian said, they dared to plot against the Hui tribe. The Hui tribe will not only take the benefits they promised, but also the Dishan tribe. So, the next time we hear news about the Dishan tribe, it will probably be about them being severely injured. That traveling team was just one of the forces of the Dishan tribe. Even if they were all killed, it was not a serious injury. The extent of the injury was much more serious than that. It was not convenient for Xiao Xian to talk about the fire crystals that Gu La had mentioned here. He would tell Mai and the shaman when he went back. Qi Yi took Xiao Xian and the others to the mountain where the wanderers rested. In addition to Qi Yi and Kun Tu's people, there were two other parties. After Mai picked them up, he took them with him. Their purpose this time was to pick up the wanderers on the grassland. They went back as soon as they picked them up. They also met many wanderers on the way, so they took them with them. Some wanderers they met on their way here were put in one place, and they would pick them up when they went back. So, the 50 totem warriors who came out to pick them up, when they returned to the tribe, there were nearly 600 wanderers around them. Since there were so many wanderers, they had to worry about food. Fortunately, the compensation they got from the Dishan tribe did not use the water moonstones given by the chief. Instead, they exchanged a lot of food, including meat and crops, with some tribes and people in the bazaar they passed by on the way back. Xiao Xian also got some seeds and took them back with him. With the wanderers, the team's speed was naturally much slower. Many people were curious about such a traveling team consisting of hundreds of people and livestock. However, those troublemakers were all dealt with. It was just that the soldiers were a little tired, and Cha-Cha and Caesar had also helped out. As for the other teams that were sent out, their situation was worse than Mai's team. At least Mai's team had carriages and enough money. And the name of Yanjiao gradually spread with the actions of these teams. There was one more tribe in the central area, called Yanjiao. The tribe called Yanjiao was very fierce. Not only were they fierce, but according to the travelers on the grassland, they also raised two ferocious beasts, a wolf and an eagle. No one knew if there were other tribes. What? You asked where their tribe was? Go straight there, next to the Wanshe tribe. Yes, that's right, it was in the ferocious beast mountain forest. Chapter 261. Before the arrival of winter, the 10 teams sent out to pick up the wanderers had all returned to the ferocious beast mountain forest. At this time, the number of people in the Flaming Horns tribe had reached 8 or 9,000. Including the wanderers from other tribes who had followed them, there were about 10,000 people in the Flaming Horns tribe around the old haunt. Including the wanderers from other tribes, there were about 10,000 people in the Flaming Horns tribe. No one had expected that there would be so many people. With so many people, it would be lively. Many houses had been built in the tribe. Basically, they were all wooden houses. Wooden houses were simple and built quickly. Now, they were just building a place for everyone to sleep and rest. As for what kind of house they wanted to build in the future, it depended on their own wishes. The totem warriors, in addition to guarding the surroundings, had to take turns to hunt for food. Now, no matter whether it was ferocious beasts or wild beasts, there were many people in the tribe. Other wanderers who came to the tribe, whether they were from the tribe or from other tribes, were trying their best to prove their value. Building houses, cutting trees, processing food, and so on, they would take the initiative to participate. This was an opportunity to make a good impression. Naturally, technical talents would not be let go. Those who knew how to build ships and carts, those who made porcelain, and those who knew about herbs were all called to help. Therefore, in the tribe, it was common to see some wanderers pushing one-wheeled or two-wheeled wooden carts to transport things. Back then, the few old men who had a special fondness for pottery, such as Xing and the others, gathered people who knew how to make pottery. Every day, they would research which soil was suitable for making pottery, which recipe was the best, and what kind of pottery to make. When Xiao Xian returned to the tribe, many people in the tribe had already started using pottery. It was much more convenient than stone tools, but some people were not used to it. For example, Kiki and the others broke one a day, which made Xing angry. Xiao Xian went to see the pottery kiln. The ancestors of the Yanjiao tribe had also left records about pottery. But after 1,000 years, pottery firing had improved a lot. There was a lot of clay in the ferocious beast mountain forest that was suitable for making pottery. This made Xing and the others so happy that they were all smiles. They would stand guard there every day, each of them holding a piece of beast skin in their hands to record something. Many times, they would even do it themselves. Xiao Xian had also burned a few household items. At the same time, he also tried to burn some pottery tiles and green bricks. Xiao Xian used the pottery tiles and bricks to build the house. The original wooden house had been converted into a brick and tiled house. It was even bigger than the house he had built on the other side of the river. Next to the house, there was also a wolf den built for Caesar. As for Cha-Cha, it would not stay here to rest. Instead, it would run to a nearby mountain to build its nest. Xiao Xian went over to take a look. It was still on a high cliff. There was a sunken area that Cha-Cha had dug into the ground to make a cave, and he lived there. When the teams came back, the livestock and seeds they brought back were also taken care of by those who knew the ropes. There were indeed many skilled people among the wanderers of the Yanjiao tribe who came from all over the world. It was much better to leave the work to them than to let the totem warriors of the tribe do it blindly. Old He and other people from the grassland were responsible for raising livestock and building animal pens. When Xiao Xian went to take a look, the few wilted cows and sheep were now very strong. Although sometimes they were frightened by the roars of the beasts in the forest, they were still braver than the animals raised by the Lu tribe. After a long time, they had adapted. Xiao Xian was called out by Tua early in the morning. He was not patrolling today. He had to go hunting later, so he only had time now. How is it? I built it myself. Tua said proudly, pointing at the house he had just built. He had planned to build a stone house with stones. After all, when he was on the other side of the river, his family also lived in a stone house. However, after seeing Xiao Xian's house made of blue bricks and tiles, Tua changed his mind. He went to Xing's place and asked them to make a batch of blue bricks and tiles. Then he brought back the house he built. After he finished, he couldn't wait to ask Xiao Xian to come and take a look. It's very good. Xiao Xian looked at Tuo's house and said. Now Xiao Xian's house was not far from Tuo's house. The distribution of houses in the tribe was similar to that on the other side of the river. The higher the status, the closer it was to the fire pit. Even though it was not a whole mountain, it was still arranged according to this rule. Xiao Xian's family did not have other people with high status. However, everyone knew his contribution to the tribe, so they had no objection to the arrangement. Why haven't I seen Kiki recently? Xiao Xian asked. In the past, Kiki and Tua used to travel together, but recently they were nowhere to be seen. Kiki's house was also nearby. Xiao Xian looked around and saw no one. Oh, him. Tua laughed. He's hatching eggs. Hatching eggs? Xiao Xian's yawn got stuck halfway. Hatching what eggs? Tua told him what happened when Xiao Xian was away. The tribe naturally needed a relatively safe environment to settle down here. The totem warriors who stayed in the tribe were responsible for the comprehensive cleaning work. Lethal plants, large wild animals, ferocious beasts, and so on had to be cleaned up. Therefore, during this period, they didn't need to travel far, nor did they need to open up hunting routes. As long as they slowly cleaned up and expanded, they would be able to hunt a lot of prey. Although the carnivorous birds that used to live in this area had moved to another place, they were still cleaned up by the totem warriors and put into the pot one by one. When we were hunting those carnivorous birds, we also found some bird eggs. We brought them back and cooked them. Later, Kiki kept some of them and didn't eat them. He planned to hatch them and raise them. In the past, Kiki had tried to raise wild animals, but unfortunately they all ended up in the pot. Now that he was hatching eggs, he didn't know what they would look like. Xiao Xian was interested. Let's go and have a look. They've been hatching for so long. Are they out yet? Xiao Xian walked towards Kiki's house. I don't think so. Tua had been busy with his own affairs recently. Except for the tasks assigned by the tribe, he spent the rest of his time building the house. When Xiao Xian arrived, Kiki was about to go out. Seeing Xiao Xian, Kiki was happy. I was going to find you. Xian, when Cha-Cha hatched, what did they eat? Hearing the chirping of Cha-Cha birds in the house, Xiao Xian and Tua knew what had happened. We used to feed them some meat. Now you can feed them some meat. Don't feed them any ferocious beasts. Tear the meat a little smaller. Yes, just like that. Xiao Xian watched Kiki tear the meat into small strips and feed them to the carnivorous birds. It was rare to see him so patient. Why do you want to raise them? Xiao Xian asked. These carnivorous birds were ferocious and didn't have much meat. If they were raised as food, it would be better to trade for some large carnivorous birds from the Lu tribe. Did he want to raise them and let the shaman mark them? They run fast. Kiki said excitedly while feeding them. I want to see if I can tame them so that we can ride them in the forest. When chasing the people of the Wanshur tribe, Kiki found that these carnivorous birds ran very fast in the forest. Although they were not as fast as the forest rakos of Mai's family, the forest rakos was a ferocious beast after all, and these unknown carnivorous birds were a little lower in level. Even so, no one could deny that these carnivorous birds were very agile in the forest. If they could be tamed, they would be more useful than horses in the forest. What if the taming fails? Xiao Xian asked. Then we eat them. Kiki said. For the people of the Yanjiao tribe, it was natural to raise them and cook them. After giving some advice to Kiki, Xiao Xian left. He had to prepare for hunting. Old Ku had polished the hunting stone tools, so Xiao Xian could take them with him. Winter was coming, and people went out to hunt every day. Because the journey was not long, they went out in the morning. If they were fast, they could come back before sunset with the prey. They went out on the same day and came back on the same day. After Xiao Xian met up with Mai and Lang Jie, they went deep into the forest. Because of the fire seed, some ferocious beasts had left the tribe, but not all of them had left. Walking in that direction, Xiao Xian saw some marks left on the trees nearby. Every time the totem warriors cleaned up the area, they would leave a mark on the surrounding trees. Groups of hunters would take turns, and the area where the marks were left extended towards the ferocious beast mountain forest. There is still a long way to go before we reach the boundary drawn by the shaman. Mai looked at the last mark and said. In the plan made by the shaman and the chief, the Yanjiao tribe had a large territory. Actually, it could not be said that they had deliberately drawn it. Instead, they had used the drawings left behind by their ancestors. The Yanjiao tribe was not in the ferocious beast forest, but thousands of years had passed, and the land had changed. The Yanjiao tribe had disappeared for nearly 1,000 years, and the ferocious beast forest had expanded to what it was today. If the Yanjiao tribe wanted to use the original boundary and reoccupy the territory, they would have to clear out the beasts and ferocious beasts here bit by bit. If we succeed in planting, we will need a bigger place. And the livestock will take up a lot of space if they are kept in large numbers. Xiao Xian said. That's true. The others nodded. They were quite excited when they imagined that scene. Okay, let's start now. Be careful. Mai said. From here on, no one would clean up anymore. Everyone had to be careful of the poisonous and threatening plants, as well as the hidden beasts and ferocious beasts. They had a lot of hunting experience. Once Mai said that, they became highly alert and stopped joking. Compared to other people's fear of the ferocious beast forest, the Yanjiao people did not feel that it was difficult. They even felt that it was familiar. The environment here was very similar to the original hunting ground. They adapted quickly to the ferocious beast forest and liked it very much, although it was indeed very dangerous. A new day of hunting began. The warriors waved the stone tools in their hands and killed the prey one by one. When the sun was about to set, they left marks on a tree nearby. When the next batch of warriors came tomorrow, they would continue to clean up. Day after day, until the winter snow fell. Chapter 262. For some wanderers, the heavy snow in winter might be a bad weather. But for those who came from the other side of the river, it was much milder here than on the other side of the river. Snowflakes were flying in the air. Standing at a high place, one could see the silvery white mountains. Although it was snowing here, it was not piled up higher than a person. Heavy snow did not fall every day. Sometimes it was sunny. Of course, in the depths of the forest, there was worse weather. Xiao Xian and the hunting warriors carried the prey and stepped on the snow, walking step by step towards the tribe. Along the way, they could see some cultivated fields. It was said that some of the seeds brought back could be sown in autumn and winter. Those plants were cold-resistant. The fields were not big. Now it was just an experimental stage. Around them, people who took care of the fields walked back and forth, busy with something. In addition to these fields, there was a newly built animal pen for raising livestock. The temporary place was too small. Now, after the expansion, another piece of land was opened up. When the wanderers first came, they all lived together with people they knew. It was similar to a collective dormitory. Because there was not enough space at that time, now nearly 2/3 of the land had been cleared. Compared with when they first came, it was much larger. Now some wanderers had moved out of the collective dormitory and built their own houses in the area demarcated by the tribe. Although the tribe accepted the wanderers, they would not give them food for free. If they needed food, they had to exchange it with labor. Not only the wanderers of other tribes, but also the wanderers of the Yanjiao tribe. The shaman and the chief did not allow them to reap without sowing. Even if the wanderers who survived were not strong, they always had the skills to support their lives. With these skills, they could exchange a lot of food from the tribe. The wanderers of other tribes lived near the border of the ferocious beasts' mountain forest. They could go out directly from there. But so far, no one had left. Although it was in the ferocious beasts' mountain forest, it was not much different from an ordinary forest after it was cleared. Moreover, in the direction near the ferocious beasts' mountain forest, there were warriors guarding every day. There was no need to worry about ferocious beasts running in. Even if there were some ferocious beasts, they would be caught and cooked before they could run far. The outer border was patrolled by warriors. The core area of the tribe was also guarded by warriors, where important people such as the shaman and the chief lived. Most importantly, there was also the fire pit. As for the orphans who were taken care of by the tribe, they couldn't catch fish here. There was no stock, but there was still a supply of food. Now, the tribe valued them more. Other than teaching them knowledge, they were also trained together. Those who performed well were rewarded. Under the stimulation of the reward, all of them were full of enthusiasm. Everything was progressing in a good direction. Xiao Xian returned home with the prey. When he was about to deal with it, Old Ku hurried over and said, "I'll deal with the prey. You go to the shaman's place. The shaman sent someone to look for you and asked you to go there when you come back." What did the shaman want? Could it be about the sacrificial ceremony after the end of winter? If they wanted to perform the sacrificial dance, they could have just gotten someone to pass on the message. There was no need to specifically call him over. Xiao Xian was confused, but he didn't waste any time. He put down the prey and went to the shaman. The place where the shaman lived was very close to the fire pit. It was almost an imitation of the house built by the ancestors. It was drawn in the Wu roll left by the ancestors. When Xiao Xian went there was only the shaman in the stone house. He was recording something. The shaman didn't stop writing. Xiao Xian didn't disturb him. He found a stool and sat down. He also took the pottery jar and pottery cup on the table and poured a cup of water. The water was still warm. At the shaman's place, someone came in to change the boiled water every once in a while, just like on the other side of the river. After about a quarter of an hour, the shaman stopped writing. He rolled up the animal skin roll and put it aside. Then he looked up at Xiao Xian. "How's the winter hunting?" the shaman asked. "It's okay. Probably because we're not in the depths of the forest, some of the ferocious beasts we encountered now are not very strong. Even if it snows, we can still go out to hunt. It's just that there are fewer prey. But we're almost at the border," Xiao Xian said. The border he mentioned was the border between the Yanjiao tribe and the ferocious beasts forest thousands of years ago. Now it was turned into a border by the shaman and the chief. The hunting warriors had to go all the way to the border to complete the hunting. At the border, there were many big stones left behind. They were engraved with words and totem patterns. The degree of damage was different. Some of them were even buried in the ground. "Yes," the shaman said lightly. He already knew what Xiao Xian said. Now he just asked casually. This was not the main reason why he called Xiao Xian here today. The shaman turned around and went to another room in the stone house. He took out a stone box with a respectful look on his face, as if he was holding a treasure in his hands. Xiao Xian sat up straight. Only the ancestors' things could make the shaman treat them like this. But why did the shaman take out the ancestors' things? After carefully placing the stone box on the low table, the shaman opened it and took out a bone ornament. There was a dim ball in the middle of the ornament. Xiao Xian was familiar with this. When he carried the ancestors out of the cave where the king's stoneworm stayed, one of them was wearing a bone ornament like this. Later, the shaman also told him that the ancestor with the bone ornament was one of the elders of the tribe. "Do you still remember this?" the shaman asked. "Yes," Xiao Xian said. He still remembered that this bone ornament was a treasure. It could withstand the influence of the king's stoneworm and prevent the cave from swallowing the ancestors. The shaman sighed and handed the bone ornament to Xiao Xian. "Take this bone ornament. When winter is over, wear it during the ceremony." Xiao Xian was surprised. "This is for me. What if I lose it?" The shaman's sad face twitched. He looked at Xiao Xian expressionlessly. "I'm just saying." Xiao Xian took the bone ornament and asked again, "Why do you want me to wear it? Didn't you say that only the elders can wear it?" "Yes." The shaman looked at Xiao Xian meaningfully. "If you can light it up, you will be an elder. How can something left by the ancestors light up so easily?" Xiao Xian said. He was not the fire seed. How could he light it up? As for the title of elder, it sounded like it was for the old men. "Not necessarily. We have to try," the shaman said. Since he had taken it out, he did not intend to change his mind. The reason why he took this step was to see if he could light up the bone ornament again. In fact, the shaman did not have much hope. After all, the fire seed was still incomplete. However, when she recalled Xiao Xian's performance during his awakening, the way he awakened with a complete fire seed, the speed of his improvement, and the power of inheritance, the shamaness decided to give it a try. After all, Xiao Xian was known to be blessed by the ancestors. Even if he could not light it up, it would protect Xiao Xian. Chapter 263. Xiao Xian held the bone ornament and recalled what had happened that year. He remembered that it was the ball in the middle of the bone ornament that worked. He asked, "Do you know what this ball is?" Where did our ancestors get these treasures from? In the King Worm's cave, it was dark without any light. However, with his special vision, Xiao Xian saw the light emitted from this ball, which covered the people and things around. However, when he held it in a place with enough light, he could see everything clearly. In his ordinary vision, this ball was as dim as an ordinary object. This was a very special object. Treasure? It is indeed very precious. The shaman stared at the ball and the bone ornament with infinite reverence and said, "A long time ago, when the tribe was just established, after the first shaman passed away, the chief put him in the fire pit. However, he found that the first shaman did not disappear directly like the others, but left 6 pearls. That's it?" Xiao Xian was surprised. The shaman nodded. Later, the 6 pearls were given to people who had made great contributions in the tribe. They were also called elders. Except for the shaman and the chief, they were the 6 people with the highest status in the tribe. They assisted the shaman and the chief. The 6 pearls were the second light in the tribe. Even in places far away from the fire pit, they could also light up the night. Unfortunately, after the fire seed of the tribe was incomplete, the 6 pearls became dim. Xiao Xian suddenly felt that the bone ornament in his hand was heavy. What if he lost it? The shaman would kill him. If it was an ordinary treasure, he would let it go. However, this was something left by the first shaman, and there was no 7th one in the world. Thinking of this, Xiao Xian was stunned. 6 pearls? Xiao Xian looked at the shaman confusedly and asked, "Are the 6 pearls left by the first shaman in your hand?" He just saw that there were only 3 bone ornaments in the box that the shaman took out. The shaman shook his head and said with obvious regret, "The other 3 pearls disappeared with the other half of the fire seed. So far, I can't feel where the other half of the fire seed is." If even the shaman couldn't sense it, then he really didn't know where it was. As expected, the fire seed was still incomplete. As for when it would be found, only the heavens knew. After talking about the sacrificial ceremony at the end of winter, the shaman let Xiao Xian leave. This time, if nothing unexpected happened, Xiao Xian would still be one of the dancers of the sacrificial dance. After Xiao Xian left, the shaman sat where he was and looked at the dim balls on the other 2 bone ornaments in the stone box. He pondered for a long time and finally sighed. Before he came here, he spent all day thinking about how to cross the river, how to return to the old land, and what to do when he arrived at the old land. But after coming back, as he understood more about the situation around him, the shaman felt a lot of pressure. Was the Yanjiao tribe strong? Yes, but only in the past. With their current strength, there was still a gap between them and the several big tribes in the central region. Even if they really fought with the Wanshi tribe next to them, the result might be quite tragic, which he didn't want to see. However, it would be better to wait for the wanderers to awaken during the sacrificial ceremony after winter. Only by becoming stronger could they have a firm foothold. Xiao Xian went back directly after leaving the shaman's place. At this time, it was already dark and there were fewer people walking outside. Fortunately, there was no night swallow here. Those annoying nocturnal insects also came out less because of the fire seed. After the fire seed was connected to the fire vein, it had a great influence on other creatures. Cha-Cha didn't like to stay near the fire pit. He just came here once a day to bring some prey to Old Ku, and then left in a hurry. After dinner, Xiao Xian planned to go to Keek's place to check on his carnivorous birds. But because of the bone ornament given by the shaman, he didn't go out, but sat in the room to study the bone ornament. The core of the bone ornament was the bead. Xiao Xian touched the dim surface of the bead. It was not as cold as other items in winter, but it was warm. Such a thing was left by the shaman after he was cremated. If the shaman hadn't told him about it, Xiao Xian wouldn't have thought about it. Xiao Xian knew that this thing was special, but he didn't find anything useful after studying it until he fell asleep. However, after falling asleep, Xiao Xian had a dream. In the dream, a humanoid figure formed by flames slowly became clear. At first, it was only at a relatively far place, but gradually, the person covered in flames walked straight towards him. The figure was getting closer and closer. His facial features could not be seen clearly, and his age and gender could not be determined. It was just a person wrapped in flames. The man opened his arms, just like the shaman when he summoned the fire seed by the fire pit. He seemed to be chanting something, but Xiao Xian couldn't hear it clearly. The shaman? Xiao Xian was like a bystander, watching the man's every move. When Xiao Xian was immersed in such a strange dream, the bone ornament he wore flashed in the dark night, and then dimmed again. As usual. When Xiao Xian woke up the next day, what he saw in the dream was still clear. Looking at the bone ornament hanging around his neck, Xiao Xian wondered if it was a dream from his ancestors. Or was he thinking too much? Shaking his head, Xiao Xian saw that the bead on the bone ornament was still as dim as yesterday. Xiao Xian stopped thinking about it. Today, he wouldn't go out to hunt, but he would participate in the patrol. Before the winter, the Wanxia tribe would occasionally come to the border to inquire about things stealthily. After the winter came, they seldom came. But they still needed to be vigilant, not to mention that there were many wanderers in the tribe whose loyalty was yet to be tested. Most of the wanderers who could persist until now were determined people who knew what kind of life they wanted. Even if they didn't have a good craft, as long as they were willing to learn and work hard, they would still be able to eat and not starve to death. Xian, how many people do you think will be awakened in this sacrificial ceremony? Lang Jie asked. I'm not sure. Maybe 1 or 2,000. Xiao Xian replied. Only 1 or 2,000. Not only Lang Jie, but also the other patrolmen around him were confused. Among the original members of the tribe, no matter whether they had the ability to hunt or not, there were more than 1,500 totem warriors. The rest were women and children who hadn't reached the age limit. Among the latter, most of them would be awakened as totem warriors in the future. After coming to the old haunt, there were 6,000 or 7,000 wanderers who came with them, including those who were found. At that time, they were surprised for a long time. If most of them could be awakened, how much help would it be? But in fact, this was not the case. Among the families of the wanderers who were accepted as members of the tribe, many were not Yanjiao people. For example, Yan Shua's wife, Old He's wife, and some women were Yanjiao people, but their husbands were wanderers from other tribes. There were many such cases, and they were all registered as members of the Yanjiao tribe. Therefore, strictly speaking, judging by blood, 30% to 50% of the 6,000 or 7,000 wanderers, and then looking at the people who could be awakened, it was estimated that only 1,000 to 2,000 people could be awakened. Listening to Xiao Xian's analysis, the patrolmen were a little listless. However, among the wanderers who came back, almost half were women. Xiao Xian said. Most of the wanderers who left halfway were men, and few women left. Perhaps, they knew that even if the tribe was facing a crisis, for them, it was the best choice. At the mention of this, Lang Jie and others who were listless suddenly cheered up. This was indeed a good thing. When they were on the other side of the river, there were few women, but the shaman was strict, so there were many bachelors in every generation. In addition, the birth rate was not high, and the environment was difficult, so after so many years, there were still so few people. Among the wanderers who came back now, not only were there many women, but the birth rate was also much higher. For example, Yan Shua's family had 2 children. Now they heard that their living conditions were better, their health was much better, and he had a wife. Seeing this, Lang Jie and others were jealous. As long as there was time, they believed that the tribe would develop quickly. Xiao Xian thought. Suddenly, he stopped and turned to look in one direction. That was where the wanderers of the tribe lived. What's wrong? Lang Jie and others saw this and asked. Xiao Xian said with vigilance and doubt, I always feel that someone is watching me. It's nothing. Everyone knows you. Maybe some girl is interested in you. Lang Jie said and stopped. Xiao Xian's face was serious, and the others stopped joking. They had experienced countless life and death hunts, so their intuition was quite accurate. If they really felt that something was wrong, then something was wrong. Not all of the wanderers who came back were trustworthy. "Let's go there and have a look," Lang Jie asked. "No." Xiao Xian stopped him, "Just keep an eye on that area." If his intuition was correct, there were other people hiding among the wanderers who came back this time. In the direction Xiao Xian was looking at, there was an inconspicuous wooden house where the wanderers who had just returned from the tribe lived. "How is it? I told you to be careful, but you didn't believe me." In the house, a man who looked simple and honest sat on a wooden stool with his legs crossed and said. But at this time, the simple and honest look on his face was gone, and there was only gloating. Next to the window of the wooden house, a beautiful and slender woman was hiding against the wall. Just now, she was just planning to test the kid, but she didn't expect that the other party had already looked over. Fortunately, she hid quickly and wasn't seen. The woman was about to say something when she heard footsteps coming from outside. They were not totem warriors, so they were relieved. "They are looking for me. I have to go out to work. You should be careful. You'd better not go out these 2 days, or we will be found." When the man said this, the teasing look on his face quickly disappeared, and he became simple and honest, with a little bit of dullness. In the following days, every patrol team paid special attention to the wanderers in the tribe. But day after day, nothing unusual happened. Soon, the winter was over, and the most significant sacrificial ceremony in the past 1,000 years was about to begin. Chapter 264. The snow on the ground began to melt quickly, and the surroundings were no longer silvery white. In the Yanjiao tribe, there was a joyful atmosphere everywhere. Some people were happy because the seeds they planted had survived, some were happy because they had found a partner, and most of them were happy because of the upcoming sacrificial ceremony. Strength and belonging were what the wanderers had been looking forward to. For the wanderers, becoming a totem warrior used to be an unattainable thing, but now, it was no longer an extravagant hope. Early in the morning, the old warriors of the Yanjiao tribe went to draw totem patterns on the faces of the wanderers who were about to become real members of the tribe. This was a necessary step of the sacrificial ceremony. Even those who had not awakened their totem, and those wanderers from other tribes who were accepted as members of the tribe as relatives, had to draw on their faces. Only those who had gone through the sacrificial ceremony could be considered as real members of the Yanjiao tribe. Those who did not have the blood of the Yanjiao tribe, even if they could not awaken their totem power, would get some power from the fire seed. Even if they could not be compared with the real totem warriors, they would be stronger than before. It was better than nothing. It was the first time for the wanderers to experience such a thing, so they were very excited. They wanted to touch the pictures on their faces, but they did not dare to do so, for fear that they would break them. It seemed that the pictures on their faces were not pictures, but their lives. They had prepared for the whole winter, and they were not willing to wear the animal skin clothes in the coldest time. They wore them carefully, for fear that they would break something. This was their sacrificial animal skin clothes, and it was also a very important ritual. Xiao Xian was called in early in the morning. Together with other sacrificial dancers this year, the shaman and the chief told them one thing after another to ensure that they would not make any mistakes this time. When the shaman came out, he glanced at Xiao Xian several times. Although he did not show it on his face, he sighed regretfully in his heart. There was no change. The bead on the bone ornament still did not change. It was still as dim as when he took it out. Xiao Xian knew what the shaman was thinking when he saw him like this, but he was helpless. What could he do if the bead did not light up? Maybe the first shaman didn't think highly of him, so he didn't light it up. After all, according to the animal skin scroll about the elders, most of the elders were old. Even if they weren't as old as the chief, they were at least as old as Ta and the others. Compared to them, he was still too young. Many people had seen the bone ornaments, especially those who were in Xiao Xian's hunting group. When they carried their ancestors back to the tribe, they remembered the ornaments and weapons on their ancestors. Therefore, after seeing the bone ornament on Xiao Xian's body, many people were surprised. They didn't know the true meaning of the bone ornament, but even if they did, it didn't matter. For the old Yanjiao people who came with them, the shaman and the chief's decisions were right even if they were wrong. Besides, Xiao Xian had indeed done a lot for the tribe. Dusk fell. All the Yanjiao tribesmen, old friends, wanderers, and non-Yanjiao relatives and wanderers were taken to the place of sacrifice. The people who might be awakened this time were also taken to the fire pit. Because of the large number of people, there were several circles around the fire pit. Those who were closest to the fire pit were the youngest. Then they were arranged according to their age. Of course, those who had made obvious contributions to the tribe during their return, such as technical talents in planting, breeding, pottery, etc., were also given the opportunity to move forward. Many people knew that the closer they were to the fire pit, the more power they might get. But no one had any objection to this arrangement. Even if they did, they had to hold it in. Last time, it was to light the fire seed. Today, it was the first real sacrifice in the old land. In the fire pit, a palm-sized flame suddenly rose. It was the first flame of the 3 flames of the fire pit, Soaring Flame. Soaring Flame, the totem appeared. With the appearance of the totem patterns on each totem warrior also appeared. They looked at the direction of the fire pit devoutly. The flame in the fire pit was higher than usual. It seemed to swallow everything around. The 2-horn totem in the fire pit was much bigger than in previous years. The surrounding area was covered with a thick layer of fire color. The shaman stood by the fire pit, raised his arms, and recited the incantation that others could not understand but made their blood boil. Along with the shaman's chanting, the sound of bone and stone music with strong tribal characteristics intertwined. The animal skin drums rose and fell, sometimes fast and sometimes slow. The sacrificial dancers wearing leather and horns also began to dance around the fire pit. The second flame, Flying Flame. The sparks were denser than in previous years. Moreover, unlike in previous years, some of the flames in the fire pit spread out of the fire pit. They extended from the air to the outside of the fire pit and did not touch the ground. 6 fire lines stretched out from the fire pit to the outside. Xiao Xian was dancing attentively. Suddenly, he felt something strange. The totem in his mind was surging violently, and the shell that wrapped the totem also lit up. This was different from before. In order to find out what was going on, he glanced at the bone ornament from the corner of his eyes as he performed the moon in the bottom of the sea pose. He was so shocked that he almost forgot what to do next. The bone ornament lit up. The bead that the first shaman turned into after his death lit up. At first, the bead seemed to reflect the light of the fire pit, but gradually, the dim surface began to brighten. The bead itself also emitted a flame-like light. Xiao Xian paid attention to the bead and had to make sure that the sacrificial dance did not make any mistakes, so he did not pay attention to other things. However, the people who looked at the fire pit were all stunned. Especially those who had seen Xiao Xian's awakening. If they could speak at this moment, they would definitely shout to Xiao Xian, "You're on fire again." It was normal for the sacrificial dancers to surround the fire pit. However, one of the dancers was suddenly on fire, which was very conspicuous. However, seeing that nothing happened to him and he was dancing so happily, the shaman and the chief did not say anything, and the others pretended that they did not see anything. The shaman found that something was wrong with Xiao Xian. Unlike other people who saw the flames on Xiao Xian's body, the first thing he noticed was the bone ornament on Xiao Xian's body. The shaman's raised hand trembled. He could not wait to see if the bead really lit up, instead of reflecting the light of the fire pit. However, he was still in the sacrificial ceremony, so he could not give up halfway. It took him a lot of effort to control himself. The shaman continued to recite the incantation, but the wrinkles on his face trembled because he was too excited. It lit up, right? It really lit up. Even if we did not find the other half of the fire seed, our ancestors still did not abandon us. This was what the shaman thought. He wanted to continue to preside over the sacrificial ceremony calmly. However, with the end of the second flame, the third flame began. In the sea of fire that spread out from the fire pit, a figure gradually appeared on the edge of the fire pit, and the place where the figure appeared was exactly where Xiao Xian was standing. The huge figure gradually became clear, like a giant standing up in the sea of fire, overlooking the Yanjiao people who were kneeling on the ground. No one could see his face clearly. He was just a person wrapped in flames, exactly the same as the one in Xiao Xian's dream that night. Because of the sudden appearance of the flame giant, the shaman froze for a while. The sacrificial dancers around the fire pit could not help but stop. They knew that they should continue to dance, but when they saw the flame giant, they could not help but stop. They stared at it blankly, and had an impulse to kneel down. Xiao Xian also raised his head and looked at the flame giant in front of him. Not only the people around the fire pit, but also the wanderers who could not awaken far away could clearly see the giant standing by the fire pit. What was that? Or, who on earth was that? The shaman thought of a possible answer, but he was not sure. After all, there was no record of this in the records left by the ancestors. The only thing he could be sure of was that this situation was not a threat to the Yanjiao tribe. On the contrary, it was better for the tribe's protection. The third flame of the fire pit was spreading, and its range was almost to the boundary that was drawn. At that time, the third flame of the fire pit should have reached the boundary between the tribe and the ferocious beasts' mountain forest. However, no one paid attention to whether the flame had reached the boundary, or how far it was from the boundary. All their attention was on the flame giant beside the fire pit. The giant, like the shaman, raised his arms. It was a very similar movement, but there was no sound. When the third flame was gradually withdrawn, the surrounding flames faded away. The flame giant who stood up disappeared little by little. Finally, it returned to the fire pit with the flame. Everything returned to normal again. Chapter 265. According to the previous sacrificial procedures, the sacrificial ceremony would be over when the third flame ended. However, tonight was different. Even the newly awakened warriors did not have the time to rejoice over the fact that they had become totem warriors. They were shocked by the flame giant that had just appeared. Although the giant had disappeared into the fire pit along with the retracted flame, the shock that came from the bottom of his heart lingered for a long time. Not only because of the giant flame giant's appearance, but also because of the feeling that the flame giant gave them. After seeing it, they threw away all thoughts and wanted to kneel down immediately. The shaman elder breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the chief Ao. Then they both looked at Xiao Xian. Whether it was the shaman or the chief, their eyes were full of joy. Everyone. The chief Ao's deep voice sounded on the ground, which brought the people who were still immersed in the feeling back to reality. I, Ao, the current chief of the Yanjiao tribe, accept Xian as the elder of the tribe according to the will of our ancestors. Ao said solemnly. After the chief, the shaman also said, I, the current shaman of the Yanjiao tribe, accept Xian as the elder of the tribe according to the will of our ancestors. The people who had just come back to reality were stunned when they heard the chief and the shaman's words. Elder? Did they mean Xiao Xian? They had also heard that there were elders in other tribes, but they were all old men who had made countless contributions in their respective tribes. They were also very strong, and most of them had competed for the position of chief. There were even some tribes that accepted the position of elder after the chief retired, but they had never heard of such a young elder. The old people of the Flaming Horns tribe only had an impression of the elders when they were cremated. They didn't have much concept of this word, but since the shamaness and the chief said it, it was indisputable. What's more, the shamaness and the chief said, in accordance with the will of the ancestors. That was the will of the ancestors, who could refute? Who dared to refute it? If anyone dared to refute it, he would be beaten up. Xiao Xian handed the bone ornament to the shaman and held a formal conferring ceremony. After that, he told the whole tribe that from now on, Xiao Xian was the elder of the Yanjiao tribe, second only to the chief and the shaman. The shaman held the bone ornament that glowed with flames. His hands were trembling because he was too excited. He could feel a sense of intimacy coming from the bone ornament. It was the power of a junior shaman, the most powerful junior shaman in the history of the tribe. At the same time, the power in his body that had been consumed because of the ceremony was rapidly recovering. In the crowd, Old Ku's face was flushed because of his emotions. His sunken eyes were filled with tears. Who would have thought that the child who came out of the cave, who couldn't even fill his stomach, would become what he was today and obtain such a high status? In the whole tribe, the old people of the Yanjiao tribe had to obey the shaman and the chief unconditionally. Even Tan Gigu, the two team leaders, couldn't make everyone obey them. But now, there seemed to be one more. According to the shaman and the chief, the elders had a higher status than the team leaders. When the shaman and the chief made important decisions, the elders could also participate and refute. After the conferring ceremony of the elders, the ceremony was over. The new totem warriors were gathered in one place, waiting for the shaman's instruction. The others went back together. From today on, they were no longer wanderers, but real Yanjiao tribesmen. This time, there were less than 2,000 awakened people, including the children who had reached the age and the wanderers who came back. The specific number was still being counted. This was similar to what Xiao Xian had expected. Xiao Xian asked Old Ku and Caesar to go back first. The chief wanted to talk to him about the bone ornaments. The people gathered around the fire pit gradually dispersed. The families of those who succeeded in awakening were very happy. They went back to celebrate with their friends. Except for the children, those who failed in awakening were much less likely to be awakened in the future. A thin woman looked very depressed. She just smiled and said nothing to the comfort of the people around her. There were many people like her, so she was not conspicuous in the crowd. When she walked out of the crowd step by step, her husband was waiting there anxiously. During the ceremony, there were wanderers from other tribes, and her husband was one of them. "How is it?" Seeing his wife coming over, the man strode forward. The woman shook her head. People passing by saw the simple and honest man awkwardly comforting his wife, and they understood. They comforted him and sighed and left. The frustrated couple in people's eyes walked out of the field, went back to their wooden house, and closed the door. The simple and honest look on the man's face disappeared. His face became dignified and helpless. He took out some herbs and mashed them, put them in a clay pot, added water, lit a fire, and boiled the medicine. These herbs did not have a strong smell like other herbs. When they were boiled, they had a faint smell of grass. If one was not careful and stood a little far away, one would not be able to smell it. The thin woman, after the door and window were closed, quickly became pale. She could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood, as if she had exhausted all her strength. If she had not been sitting on the stool with the help of the wooden table, she would have fallen down directly. "I miscalculated." The man looked at the clay pot and said. The woman gasped and sat on the stool beside the wooden table. She did not say anything, for she was afraid that she would spit out blood again. When the medicine was boiled, she drank it and rested for a while. Then she slowly said, "If the flame giant did not appear suddenly, I would not be like this." Originally, their plan was to observe the Yanjiao tribe during the ceremony to see if there were any precious treasures. Generally speaking, the treasures taken out during the ceremony were extremely precious. However, this time, they miscalculated. They were acting as a young couple. The man was from another tribe, and the woman was from Yanjiao bloodline. During the ceremony, they stood in different places, because this time the wanderers with Yanjiao bloodline would be closer to the front, so that it would be easier for them to awaken. If the totem warriors from another tribe wanted to join the Yanjiao tribe, they had to go through the ceremony to be accepted by the fire seed. Otherwise, they would be rejected by the fire seed. No one would want to experience that kind of feeling. But if they were wanderers with no religion, the repulsion of the fire seed would be much smaller. They had not received such a ceremony, and at the same time, they were not wanderers without any religion. When the flames in the fire pit spread, she felt that her whole body was like thorns, and it was burning. However, she could bear such pain. They had experienced many similar situations, so their endurance was naturally different from ordinary people. However, they did not expect that a flame giant would suddenly appear. The repulsion of the fire seed was doubled at that time. Moreover, the flame giant gave her a very strong deterrent force. At that time, she almost spat out blood, but she forced it back. Fortunately, at that time, the people around her were paying attention to the situation in the fire pit. No one paid attention to her, or she would have been exposed. She remembered that the situation at that time was like a weak beast facing a giant beast. She had no power to resist. Thinking about it now, she still had a lingering fear. Thanks to her long-term experience and superb disguise, she avoided the people around her. Chapter 266. The man who was cleaning up the dregs sighed, "I wanted to steal the bone ornament from him, but now it seems that I have to change my target." Although he was far away from the core area of the fire seed, he could still feel the repulsion and awe. Not many people knew the bone ornament. Except for those who carried the ancestor back, the others didn't see it carefully. After a few years, they couldn't remember it clearly. Xiao Xian usually hung the bone ornament around his neck and put it in the animal skin. He didn't take it out. He had seen Xiao Xian's bone ornament before. In the winter, Xiao Xian went to the rearing place to help Kiki catch the escaped carnivorous birds. After a while, the bone ornament slipped out and he saw it. People in this line of work had excellent eyesight. Although the bead on the bone ornament was dim and looked worthless, he felt that it was very precious, much more valuable than the fire crystal. But that boy was too sharp, so he didn't find a chance to take it. But now, after the Yanjiao's sacrifice, he had given it up. It was a Yanjiao ancestor's symbol, so of course it was precious. But the awe made him vigilant. What should we do next? The woman, who had recovered a lot, asked. Wait for an opportunity. If there is something wrong, retreat first. The man said. In fact, he also wanted to go to the Yanjiao shaman's house. Unfortunately, the defense there was too strong, much stronger than that of the drumming tribe. And there was that young elder who was very observant. It was difficult to succeed in one go. After the sacrifice ceremony, the atmosphere in the Yanjiao tribe became livelier and more positive. Because of the power and the acceptance of the tribe, everyone was full of enthusiasm. Even the wanderers from other tribes who weren't qualified to participate in the sacrifice ceremony of the Yanjiao tribe couldn't help but envy them. Those who were smart were thinking about when to hook up with someone from the Yanjiao tribe. In that case, they could enter the tribe as relatives. There was liveliness and commotion. As winter passed, everything in the forest started to become restless. After clearing out their territory, the Yanjiao tribe reorganized their hunting teams. They took turns going out to hunt and opening up new hunting routes. At the same time, they strengthened their defenses around the area. The new totem warriors had already taken up their posts, and they were quite active. They could not wait to walk around the border all day with their weapons. As totem warriors, they were very excited to participate in such a matter. More fields were opened up in the tribe, and the animal pens for raising livestock were also expanded. Everything was going in a good direction, but the crisis wouldn't tell you when it would come. You had to be prepared all the time, especially for the Wanshe tribe. On this day, Xiao Xian was patrolling with the others. Even though he had become an elder, he couldn't idle around all day. Although the elders did have the right to not participate in the hunting patrols, Xiao Xian was still young. He wasn't an old man, so he couldn't bear it. At first, the people in the hunting team and the patrolling warriors were a little worried about Xiao Xian's attitude. They didn't dare to make fun of him. But gradually, they found that Xiao Xian didn't reprimand them because of this, so they became bolder and spoke more freely. However, they still listened to Xiao Xian when making decisions. Just like Kiki and Tua, they usually joked with Ta, but when it came to serious matters, they always listened to Ta. Xiao Xian and the patrolling warriors were patrolling in the tribe. As they walked, they came to the place where the Yanjiao newcomers lived. After the sacrifice ceremony, these wanderers with the blood of the Yanjiao tribe really settled down and became tribesmen. Xiao Xian took a look and said with a smile, "You've changed a lot. In the winter, this place was full of wooden houses. But now, some families had changed their wooden houses into stone and wood structures. Maybe soon, blue bricks would appear here too. Yes, there are more totem warriors," the other patrolling warriors said. The wooden houses were changed into stone houses for two reasons. One was that stone houses were sturdier, and the other was that stone houses showed more status. It also told the people around that there were totem warriors in this family. Especially the wanderers who had experienced a lot of hardships and awakened their totem power. Now they couldn't wait to show off to the world. "Keep an eye on them," Xiao Xian said. This was the message from the chief and the shaman. They didn't exclude these newcomers, but there were indeed many among them who were conceited. The Yanjiao tribe had its own rules. If they broke the rules, even if they were totem warriors, the shaman and the chief wouldn't be soft-hearted. They had to be corrected before they went astray. As they were walking, they heard that something had happened in the animal pen. The patrolling warriors were close, so they planned to go and check it out. Xiao Xian was about to go with them, but he saw something out of the corner of his eye. He stopped and looked over. "Xian, aren't you going?" Lang Jie saw that Xiao Xian didn't follow, so he asked. "You go first. I have something to do. If the problem is serious, blow the whistle." "Okay," Lang Jie said. The other patrolling warriors rushed to the animal pen and soon disappeared. Xiao Xian lifted his foot and walked in another direction. There was a couple there. The woman was carrying a rattan basket in her hand. They were walking towards the place where the newcomers lived in Yanjiao. Because there were other people around, Xiao Xian didn't move. When Xiao Xian followed them, the two people in front of him walked faster and faster. They also changed their direction. They were no longer walking towards the wooden houses. The people around them gradually became fewer and fewer. "The two people in front, please wait," Xiao Xian said. The two people in front of him didn't seem to hear him and continued walking. Xiao Xian hadn't seen all the newcomers in Yanjiao. He hadn't seen these two people before. Just now, he only saw their side profile, but Xiao Xian could confirm it. He hadn't seen these two people before. Xiao Xian didn't say anything else. He leaped forward like an arrow and rushed towards the two people in front of him. The two people who were walking together seemed to have eyes on the back of their heads. When Xiao Xian moved, they immediately separated. The man turned to face Xiao Xian. His entire aura changed in an instant. It was as sharp and hard as a blade. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched towards Xiao Xian. There were no totem patterns, but he had the power and aura of a totem warrior. When Xiao Xian approached, his right hand suddenly changed. His 5 fingers changed from a fist to a claw. With a sudden sharp aura, he attacked Xiao Xian's shoulder from top to bottom. This claw was like a boulder falling down. It was powerful and heavy. Whether it was speed or power, it was much higher than an intermediate totem warrior. Even an intermediate totem warrior might not be able to stay intact under this claw. The weaker totem warrior's shoulder would be directly broken. A wanderer? Which tribe's wanderer would have such an aura and powerful strength? At the same time, the man in front of him gave Xiao Xian a very familiar feeling. Xiao Xian's fist, which was originally swinging, changed in the instant they exchanged blows. His palm flipped from the outside to the inside, and like the agile vines in the forest catching prey, he quickly grabbed his opponent's wrist and threw it. He didn't directly throw the man away. Xiao Xian held him tightly, as if he wanted to smash him directly to the ground. The moment the man landed, he stepped on the ground with one foot. If it was someone else, even if they could stand firm, their feet would have to withstand the force of the crash. If the force was transmitted to the ground, it would not only crack the ground, but it would also leave a pit or deep footprint. After all, Xiao Xian had used his totemic power, and he had mobilized it to the peak in the moment of the attack. It was not easy to bear such a force. However, the man whose wrist was grasped by Xiao Xian didn't step on the ground as Xiao Xian expected. Whoosh! It was like a gust of wind. The dust on the ground was blown away from his feet, and the air waves spread out. It was silent. Chapter 267. The person who should have been thrown to the ground seemed to have transformed from a hard rock into a soft sponge the moment he landed. Xiao Xian could even clearly see the person whose wrists were locked by him undergo an unimaginable change in that instant. The originally tall and strong man collapsed like a pile of soft mud, turning into a flat and round fatty. At this moment, the sound of bones cracking could be heard, accompanied by the sound of air currents. Xiao Xian used to think that these people had special physiques and special abilities. They could change their appearance and disguise themselves as other people, and could even blur the connection between their bloodline totems. That was why they were not discovered by the people in the tribe. However, he still underestimated the person in front of him. While Xiao Xian was fighting with that person, the slender woman who had retreated to the side stared at Xiao Xian in surprise. She knew that Xiao Xian was very sharp, which was why they immediately changed their plan when they found out that Xiao Xian was following them. They did not plan to fool him. Usually, they would avoid the patrol team, especially the ones with Xiao Xian. However, they did not expect to be so unlucky today. They only saw him from afar before he followed them. How did this kid find out? If everyone else was like him, how could they fool the others in the future? Xiao Xian was also paying attention to the slender woman's movements, in case she made a move. However, she did not seem to be in a hurry. After a moment of surprise, she calmed down and stood aside to watch the battle. Looking at the person in front of him, Xiao Xian was shocked. Before Xiao Xian could react, in the next moment, the other party's ferocious and murderous aura disappeared. Xiao Xian felt the wrist in his hand tighten. Before he could grab it again, the person quickly slipped away. The person who broke free from Xiao Xian's grip smiled. His face was distorted because of his broken bones. Under normal circumstances, there would be a hint of pride and arrogance. However, when he smiled in this state, it was strange and terrifying. Just as Zhang Xian was about to say something, the smile on Zhang Xian's face suddenly froze as he turned his gaze to the sky. He was annoyed in his heart. Oh no, I forgot that there was a bird in the sky. The communication between the members of the patrol team was not limited to just whistling. Sometimes, the two birds in the sky would also play a role. Right now, Cha-Cha wasn't in the tribe, but Gigu's snow was. It was precisely this snow that silently went to call for help. Someone's coming. Let's go. The slender woman next to him stomped her feet on the ground and shot out like an arrow. She didn't look as delicate as she usually did. Although his body looked weak, it was actually hiding a great amount of explosive power. The man who was fighting with Xiao Xian also quickly left the place, but the husband and wife went in different directions. The moment the two of them left, Gigu appeared with 10 or so people. They split into two groups and chased after them. Xiao Xian didn't chase after them. He knew that with the strength of the two people, it would be difficult for Gigu to catch up. He was now certain that the man who fought with him was the one he met at the drumming tribe last year. Perhaps, he had stolen something from the drumming tribe. What made Xiao Xian feel strange was that these two people didn't reveal any real killing intent, whether it was at the drumming tribe or when they were hiding in the Yanjiao tribe. Xiao Xian didn't use his sword just now. He had left some leeway. Not long after, Gigu and the others returned. From his expression, it was clear that they didn't catch up. How was it? Xiao Xian asked. They ran. I saw them run out of the forest. Gigu said. The white falcon in the sky also returned. It also didn't manage to track them. Those two, Are they also robbers? Gigu asked. Should be. Xiao Xian answered. Gigu's expression became worse. He sent more people to strengthen the patrols in case the two came back again. They went to the place where the new Yanjiao people lived. Xiao Xian described the two people's faces and figures. Not long after, with the help of the people there, they found the place where the two impersonators lived. Here. Gigu kicked the door open without hesitation. Some people around heard the noise and looked over. They didn't know what was going on, but they recognized Gigu and Xiao Xian. One was the chief of the tribe, and the other was a young elder. They were both people of high status in the tribe, so they didn't dare to ask. Xiao Xian whispered something to Tua and walked into the house. Tua didn't follow him in immediately. Instead, he revealed to the people around that the couple living here had secretly left and stole something from the tribe before they left. He didn't tell them the real truth. If they knew that there were people from other tribes in disguise, it might cause panic. These new people, who had just settled down, could overthink things and even suspect each other. This was not what the shaman and chief wanted to see. So Xiao Xian asked Tua to reveal only a little. Knowing that they were defectors, the others were filled with righteous indignation. Those who had more contact with the couple also said a lot of things about them. At the same time, they separated themselves from the two for fear of being misunderstood. They would never be defectors. In the house, Xiao Xian looked at the furnishings inside. It wasn't much different from the other residents. Everything looked normal. Gigu looked around and listened to the information provided by the people around. If he guessed right, these two people had been hiding in the tribe before winter. They hadn't been discovered for a whole winter, and they even went to the ceremony with them. If the two of them caused a ruckus during the ritual, thinking of this, Gigu and the others couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Then they became so angry that they smashed the wooden table next to them. Xiao Xian and Gui He searched around the house but didn't find anything useful. Xiao Xian and Gui He then went to the chief together to report this matter. Thieves had entered the tribe and hid very well. This made the chief Ao very vigilant. Go and re-registered the names of every family in the tribe. Ta and Gigu, you are in charge. Ao said in a deep voice. Yes. Last year, because many things were done in a hurry, there were many omissions and loopholes. Now that such a thing happened, Ao needed to clean up the internal people again. No, not only the people in the Yanjiao tribe, but also the wanderers living in the periphery had to be re-registered and checked one by one every once in a while. The two team leaders left with their people. Ao looked at Xiao Xian standing next to him and asked, Xian, how did you find them? Intuition, Xiao Xian said. He didn't know why, but after seeing the two people, he felt something was wrong. He followed them and felt more and more that something was wrong. When he was in the drumming tribe, he could find that person because he was in the state at that time. He could feel different totems around him. That person was exposed. After that, Xiao Xian rarely had that state. Therefore, when he saw the couple, Xiao Xian was just confused. Later, he was sure that they were not from the Yanjiao tribe. Ao didn't ask about Xiao Xian's answer in detail. He thought about the two people in disguise again. He didn't want to be like the drumming tribe, who didn't know that something was stolen. I will send more people to the shaman's place. You should be more careful. When Ao said this, he glanced at Xiao Xian's neck. What he meant was, you also have a precious treasure left by your ancestors. Be careful and don't lose it. After leaving Ao's place, Xiao Xian walked around with the patrolling people. When he passed by the residential area of the Yanjiao newcomers, he left the team and planned to go there again to see if he could find any clues. It was a wooden house similar to the surrounding area. In the house, there was a wooden table broken by Gigu. There was a lot of wood debris on the ground. Some things next to it had traces of being moved. Gigu had brought people here to search. The wooden house was about 20 square meters. The furnishings were simple and easy to see at a glance. The wood on the wooden wall had been knocked, and there were marks left by tools. The ground had been dug, but they probably didn't find anything. The person who came was so angry that he stepped on the wooden stool and broke it. They didn't find anything unusual. They were just like the others who hadn't awakened their totemic power. There was nothing special about them. No, there was something special. Xiao Xian sniffed carefully. Because he had been exposed to a lot of herbs with the shaman, he had a better ability to distinguish herbs. There was a faint smell of grass. It wasn't bitter medicine, so it wasn't easy to detect. Next to the stove made of simple stones, there were some light green debris. Xiao Xian dipped his finger in it and sniffed. Those two were injured. It should be a recent injury. Thinking of the sacrifice a few days ago, Xiao Xian wondered if it was caused by the repulsion of the fire seed during the sacrifice. But why were thieves so bold nowadays? They were willing to experience the repulsion of the fire seed just to steal something. How dedicated! If the two who escaped knew what Xiao Xian was thinking, they would definitely curse him. If it wasn't for you, they wouldn't have been injured to the point of vomiting blood. After looking around, other than the medicinal dregs, he didn't find anything suspicious. Xiao Xian was about to leave, but before he left, Xiao Xian thought for a while and turned back. Using his special ability, he scanned the house. Everything in the surroundings darkened. The wooden walls, stones, and other objects also lost their original color and became dull gray, except for one place. Xiao Xian's gaze stopped at the foot of the wooden wall. There, it was different from the surrounding gray. There was a faint light. It wasn't bright, but compared to the surrounding gray, it was very obvious. Closing the door of the wooden house, Xiao Xian walked over and looked at the dim light at the foot of the wall. It seemed to be coming from underground. Unable to see what was buried underground, Xiao Xian took out a short knife and started digging. As the soil and stones were dug out, the light became stronger and stronger. Finally, Xiao Xian saw a glowing object. Exiting his special vision, Xiao Xian looked at the object in his hand. It was an animal skin bag. The object inside was about the length of a forearm. It was cylindrical. He opened the animal skin bag and took out the object inside. It was a wooden cylinder. He couldn't tell what species it was. It wasn't bamboo, but it wasn't the ordinary wood Xiao Xian had seen before. It was slightly harder. There was a wooden plug at one end of the wooden cylinder. It was tightly plugged. There was a golden mark near the mouth of the wooden plug. It was the color of gold powder. Was there such a shiny gold pigment? Or was it some kind of metal? Could it be that these two people had stolen the treasure from some tribe? Xiao Xian was curious and wanted to pull out the wooden plug. Although it was just a wooden plug, it couldn't be pulled out without a bit of strength. At least, an ordinary wanderer wouldn't be able to pull it out. In order to prevent the thing inside from falling out, Xiao Xian pulled out the wooden plug with force. The wooden cylinder was filled with golden powder. If it was placed in front of Yang Guang, it would definitely be dazzling. Gold? No, not gold. It wasn't even any metal. Xiao Xian weighed the wooden cylinder slightly and used the stone knife to pick up some. The gold powder wasn't as heavy as metal or stone. It was more like wood. Golden wood? It wasn't dyed, but naturally golden. What kind of tree was golden? Xiao Xian really didn't know. But what was the use of the gold powder? Was it worth it for the two to bury it so carefully? They probably buried it when they built the house. Generally speaking, if those two people wanted to sneak into the Flaming Horns tribe, they would hide the things they stole in a hidden place, and then sneak in. However, it could also be that the things they stole were too precious, so they didn't dare to casually leave them. They had to bring them with them. In the Yanjiao tribe, they were afraid of being found and suspected, so they hid it at the foot of the wall in the house. They hid it quite well. The golden color on the wooden plug was the gold powder in the wooden cylinder. This meant that the wooden plug had been pulled out, but it had been a while. Xiao Xian dipped some gold powder and waited for a while. He didn't feel any pain, so he became bolder. In his special vision, the wooden cylinder and the gold powder in it all had a little light. The gold powder's light was a little brighter than the wooden cylinder's, but it wasn't the brightest. The real light source was still inside. Looking around, Xiao Xian took a wooden plate. There were many flaws on the wooden plate. It wasn't perfect. It looked like it was made by someone who wasn't skilled enough. People who saw it wouldn't doubt the real strength of the two people. In terms of details, the two people did a good job. After wiping the wooden plate, Xiao Xian poured out the gold powder from the wooden cylinder. When the gold powder fell on the wooden plate, it made a fine sound like sand, but it wasn't as heavy as sand. When the gold powder was poured out, a square, dark green object was poured out along with the gold powder. Xiao Xian carefully pinched a corner of the object out of the gold powder. It looked like a part of some kind of leaf, but it was cut into a square. There were cut marks on both ends, but not on the other sides. The veins on the leaf could be clearly seen. Xiao Xian felt that the wooden cylinder was very old, but this leaf looked like it was newly plucked. It didn't look withered at all. Sniffing it carefully, he could even smell the light scent of plant leaves. This scent was shocking. Even though it wasn't strong, it made people feel refreshed. It was as if all the fatigue in the body had been dispelled. What made Xiao Xian even more curious was the drawing on the leaf. He couldn't tell what it was. The lines were twisted and messy, and it didn't look like a drawing. Words? It didn't look like one either. Xiao Xian carefully blew away the gold powder that covered the leaf. He wanted to see the drawing more clearly, but as he looked, he realized that the golden words formed by the gold powder on the dark green leaf were gradually fading. Xiao Xian didn't blow anymore. The surrounding doors and windows were tightly shut. Even if the wind blew in, it wouldn't disperse the gold powder so quickly. Moreover, the gold powder on the wooden plate was fine. Only the gold powder on the leaf was fading quickly. Xiao Xian wanted to bury the leaf back into the gold powder. He wondered if it would be better and stop the dispersal of the gold powder. However, before he could do anything, his vision turned black and he lost consciousness. Chapter 268. In fact, the couple who escaped from the Yanjiao tribe did not go far. They originally thought that if they could not hide in the Yanjiao tribe, they could hide in the peripheral wanderers area. However, not long after, the Yanjiao people began to check the list of wanderers one by one. Let's wait for the right time. There will always be people who leave. Then it will be our chance. Yes. The thin woman had become plump, and her face had changed. Even if they were found, no one would think that they were the traitors. Thinking of something, the woman suddenly asked, "What about that thing?" "What thing?" "The longevity leaf." The woman gritted her teeth. Hearing this, the man suddenly understood and then said indifferently, "It's okay. When the wind blows over, we will go back and dig it out." "If it is dug out?" The woman was worried. They had picked up the treasure when they were hiding something. It was in an underground cave, and there were a few skeletons beside it. They didn't know which tribe they belonged to, but judging from the hardness of the bones and the degree of preservation, these people must have been very powerful warriors in the past. The treasure was next to the skeletons. Whether it was the treasure itself or the people who had been dead for a long time, there was no sign of any tribe. After an unknown number of years, the wooden cylinder had already changed color. However, the leaf inside was still fresh. That was the longevity leaf. It was said that the leaf would not rot after 10,000 years. It could be kept fresh for 10,000 years. A long time ago, the shamans of the tribe used it to record the inheritance. However, there were very few longevity leaves that had been passed down. Now, almost no one had seen the longevity leaf, let alone looking for the rare plant that was thought to be extinct. They had only heard about it before, but had never seen it with their own eyes. However, when they saw the leaf, they were both shocked. After the shock, they were happy. If they could get this treasure, maybe their ranking in the robbers would rise a lot. It was a pity that they could not understand the strange lines on the leaf. Because he was too curious, he didn't feel at ease leaving it outside. So when he sneaked into the Wanderers of the Flaming Horns tribe, he took it with him. Anyway, it would not be conspicuous if it was wrapped in a tattered animal skin. After entering the Yanjiao tribe, they had also locked themselves in the room and secretly studied it for a long time, but still failed to discover the hidden mystery. Perhaps, only the shaman of the tribe could explain it. Who would think of digging up things there? Even if they tore down the house, they might not be able to dig it out. Even if someone finds it, we can just steal it back. Besides, how can it be so easy to find it? Even if they find it, they might not be able to understand it. How can it be easy to use longevity leaves to record it? That's true. The woman was relieved. However, the two men did not know that the things they had buried in the house had already been dug out by Xiao Xian. On the other side, Xiao Xian was unaware of the outside world. Naturally, he did not know that after he lost consciousness, the dark green leaf in his hand that looked like it had just been plucked quickly withered and turned yellow after all the gold powder disappeared. Then, it weathered and fell to the ground like sand, mixing with the other dust on the ground and becoming indistinguishable. At this moment, although Xiao Xian knew nothing about the outside world, he could see the totem in his sea of consciousness and the strange pattern drawn on the leaf. Why would this picture appear here? Was this also a totem? No, it was not. Xiao Xian looked at the strange moving picture. It was like a living thing, jumping up and down. A worm? A snake? Or something else? It had no eyes, no limbs, only a monotonous line that existed there, but it kept moving. What the hell was this? Xiao Xian did not know much about this world. His knowledge of history and other things was even more shallow. He had only heard about it from the mouths of others, and it was even more difficult to tell whether it was true or not. He did not know what the leaf he had been holding before he lost consciousness was, nor did he know what the gold powder was. He also did not understand what the flowing lines represented. While he was puzzled, Xiao Xian found that in addition to the strange line pattern, there was a pair of hands faintly appearing. With the appearance of the hands, the flat pattern became much more three-dimensional. This time, Xiao Xian could guess what it was. When he was learning traps from old Ku, he had also learned several new ways to tie knots. What he saw now was like a pair of hands, holding a rope and tying a knot. It was just tying a knot. Was there a need to be so mysterious? Xiao Xian still did not understand. But the more he looked, the more he felt that something was wrong. This was not a knot used to set a trap. It was more like a message, a very important and powerful message. After staring for a long time, Xiao Xian did not see the pair of hands tying a knot. They just kept moving around, and it was a little chaotic. While Xiao Xian was staring at the knot in his mind, in reality, in the Wu's stone house. Chief Ao, the Wu, the two team leaders, Toa, and some of the people from the previous advance group were gathered here. Their attention was focused on the same place. There, a person was lying on a piece of animal skin. Chief, what happened to Xian? Was he sneak attacked? Kiki asked in a low voice. Ta glanced at him. He did not say anything, but his face was very pale. Not only Ta, but also in the house, no one was happy, especially Gigu. Gigu had taken people to check the name list of the newcomers' residential area in Yanjiao today. He had also searched the houses of the two suspicious people, but did not find anything unusual. However, just as he was about to leave, he heard from people nearby that Xiao Xian had been here, but did not see when he left. Gigu wondered if Xiao Xian had gone to the houses of the two defectors again, so he planned to go and check it out. Unexpectedly, when he went in, he found Xiao Xian lying on the ground. He was so scared that his hair almost stood up. Xiao Xian had just been appointed as an elder. If something happened to him, the Wu and the chief would definitely go crazy. Fortunately, Xiao Xian was breathing normally. However, no matter how hard they tried, they could not wake him up. Gigu had to bring Xiao Xian to the Wu for help. However, even the Wu could not wake Xiao Xian up. Gigu told the Wu and Ao what he had seen after entering the wooden house, including the newly dug hole near the foot of the wall, the empty wooden cylinder on the ground, and the gold powder in the wooden plate. The two team leaders suspected that the two defectors had come back and wanted to dig up the buried things, but Xiao Xian had bumped into them and knocked Xiao Xian out. However, it did not make sense. There were no wounds on Xiao Xian's body. It did not look like he had fought with anyone. Besides, if the two defectors could knock Xiao Xian out so easily, why didn't they just kill him? Unable to come up with an explanation, the others could only remain silent. The Wu dipped the gold powder in the wooden plate that Gigu brought over and rubbed it with her fingers. Her eyes flashed. He moved. Look, Xian moved. Gigu, who had been staring at Xiao Xian, exclaimed. Everyone looked at Xiao Xian, who was lying on the animal skin. They saw Xiao Xian's fingers on both sides of his body moving. There was no pattern to it, but it seemed to be caused by a conscious reaction. But soon, the trembling fingers moved a little more, and his wrist moved from time to time. At the same time, Xiao Xian seemed to be enduring something very strenuous. His physical strength was quickly consumed, and his face was covered with sweat. He did not fight or do anything else. He was just lying there. How could his physical strength be consumed so quickly? Everyone was surprised. Did he have a nightmare? Kiki whispered. This man was so scared that his forehead was covered with sweat. Was he hunting ferocious beasts in the forest in his dream? Looking at Xiao Xian's hand movements, the Wu felt that it was not like what Kiki had said. It seemed to be somewhat familiar. Thinking of something, the Wu's pupils shrank. She raised her hand and waved at the others. She wanted to drive them away. The two team leaders drove the others out, and intended to go back into the room to check on Xiao Xian. However, they were blocked by Ao, who came to close the door. He did not want to let them in. Ta opened his mouth and wanted to say something. However, his father stared at him, and he became quiet. He turned around and went out with Gigu. After the others left, Ao closed the door and came over. Seeing that Xiao Xian did not wake up, he asked the Wu in confusion, "What do you think?" The Wu stared at Xiao Xian's hand movements and sighed helplessly. Look at his hand movements. They are not like fighting or anything else. They are like knots. Knots? Ao was even more confused. A long time ago, before the written language appeared, the ancestors of the tribe used knots to record things. Knots, teaching, and reading were like an early language. It was a popular way of communication and inheritance at that time. It was also called conclusion by the later generations. When writing gradually appeared and became popular, it gradually replaced the position of knots to record things and became the mainstream medium of communication within the tribe and between tribes. In the end, it led to the withdrawal of knots to record things, and the conclusion was hard to find. Even in the Flaming Horns tribe 1,000 years ago, they were mainly written in words and patterns. All the records were written in pictures. It could be said that now, except for the Wu of the tribe and his successors, no one would learn knots. You taught Xian the conclusion? Ao was surprised. Since Xiao Xian was not the candidate for the next Wu, why did he teach him the conclusion? The Wu shook his head. I have never taught him. Could it be Guizhe? Absolutely impossible. Without my permission, Guizhe would not make a decision. And the Wu did not finish his words. He was just suspicious, because if Xiao Xian's hand movements were related to knots, it was too complicated. It was different from ordinary knots. If you did not teach him, where did he learn the conclusion? Ao was not suspicious of Xiao Xian's intentions. He was just confused. In his opinion, knots to record things had long been eliminated. It was useless to learn it. If he had the time, he might as well go hunting. Just as Ao and the Wu were talking, Xiao Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Just now, in the sea of consciousness, he saw the hands gradually disappear. He left that state and gradually regained his senses. He also felt more and more exhausted and sleepy. Chapter 269. When he opened his eyes, his consciousness was still a little blurry. It took him a while to focus. The shaman and the chief appeared above him. "Xian, how are you?" Ao asked. Xiao Xian struggled to sit up. He took a glass of water from the shaman and drank it. After a while, he said, "I'm fine." "You don't look like you're all right," Ao thought. After drinking a few more glasses of water, Xiao Xian felt that his strength had recovered a little. He told the shaman about what he found in the wooden house. He didn't mention his special ability, just his intuition. Ao was relieved. It was good that he wasn't attacked. "That's it?" The shaman took the wooden plate and the wooden cylinder with the gold powder. "Yes." "And the leaf?" Xiao Xian asked. The shaman and Ao looked at each other and shook their heads. "I'll call Gigu and ask him." "No, I'll go to the wooden house myself," Ao said. Gigu wouldn't lie. If there was a leaf with a pattern drawn with gold powder, he would have brought it. But there wasn't. "I'll go and have a look." Xiao Xian got up. He was a little weak, but he could walk. "I'll go with you," the shaman said. The three people with the highest status in the Yanjiao tribe went out at the same time. Ta and Gigu called some people to guard them nervously. They were afraid that an assassin would appear. Recently, the tribe was really unsafe. They had been guarding against ferocious beasts, but now they found that humans were more troublesome than ferocious beasts. When they came to the wooden house again, Xiao Xian pointed to the place where he had the leaf. There was no leaf around. "Did anyone else come in?" Ao asked. Gigu shook his head. "I don't think so. Recently, the people living around were busy drawing a line with the two people. How could they come in?" As for the people who followed him, he believed that no one would hide anything. The shaman walked around the house, then stopped at the place where Xiao Xian had fainted. He squatted down and stretched out his arm, brushing the ground. The air generated by his palm blew the dust on the ground, but there was some dust that wasn't blown away. "The leaf is gone," the shaman said. "Gone?" "When I took it out, the leaves looked like they had just been picked. They were green." Xiao Xian was very surprised. But the shaman said it was gone, so it was gone. When they returned to the stone house, the shaman asked Xiao Xian to stay alone. "Do you know the movements of your fingers before you woke up?" the shaman asked. "I don't." Xiao Xian shook his head. At that time, even if someone beat him to a pulp, he wouldn't feel it, much less the movement of a finger. "You're tying a rope." The shaman's gaze was meaningful. "Not?" "Yes." The shaman told Xiao Xian about the history of knots and knots. These were all mentioned in the precious records left by the ancestors. Although the shaman didn't know it very well, he could roughly guess it from those records. "And the leaf you're holding is probably the longevity leaf. It's said that it will never rot even after being buried," the shaman said. "Is there really a longevity leaf?" Xiao Xian was doubtful. "It's not a rumor." The shaman dipped his finger into the remaining gold powder on the wooden plate and said to Xiao Xian, "These are also powder made by the longevity tree where the longevity leaf is." Xiao Xian didn't say anything. The shaman didn't care whether he believed it or not. He continued, "It said that a long time ago, leaves and shells were also tools used by the ancestors to pass down their legacies. Precious plants such as the longevity leaf were the messengers to record important legacies." Xiao Xian, do you know that in the past, the shaman's legacies only had language and no words? Even if words and pictures are popular now, there are still many legacies that don't use words and pictures. For example, I'll pass on some of the abilities to Guizhe in the future. Such legacies, even if recorded with words and pictures, will be destroyed. They only exist once. When the receiver absorbs them, there will be no words for others to read in the world. Naturally, there won't be a second person who can obtain such legacies. You mean that the longevity leaf is the legacy of a certain shaman? Xiao Xian asked. Yes. Between different tribes, because of totems and fire seeds, legacies should be isolated and rejected. But why wasn't I rejected? Xiao Xian asked. He took a look at the leaf and fell down. And the one who completed his messenger's mission, the leaf that people said would never rot even after being buried, had already dispersed. The shaman couldn't answer. He didn't know many things and couldn't give an answer. So, I inherited the legacy of that leaf? I don't know what it was. I only saw a pair of hands holding a rope and tying knots. But they kept going around and never completed a knot. Xiao Xian described the scene in his sea of consciousness, hoping to get some hints from the shaman. The shaman stroked his beard. He had already pulled out 2 strands, but he still couldn't figure out what it was. Tomorrow, go to Guizhe's place and ask her to teach you the knots. The shaman said, before the appearance of words, knots were used to record things. After the appearance of words, stone bones and wood skin, the method of inheritance has always been changing. The ancient knots, in my opinion, are very mysterious. In ancient times, divination, contracts, memorials, and other things were all done using the knot method. How can a few knots represent so many things? Xiao Xian asked. But as soon as he said this, he wanted to slap himself. Stupid. Of course, things related to the shaman profession couldn't be explained by common sense. Even if they drew an egg, you couldn't think that it was really an egg, let alone a few knots. Originally, he thought that what he saw now was already ancient. He didn't expect that there was something even more ancient. However, Xiao Xian was really interested in knots. He wanted to understand what kind of message the leaf was trying to convey. The letters were all made of longevity leaves. How precious were the things that were sent on them? The next day, Xiao Xian went to Guizhe's medicine house. The shaman had already told Guizhe about it. When she saw Xiao Xian, Guizhe put down what she was doing and pointed to some animal skin rolls on the wooden table next to her. That's what the shaman gave you. Xiao Xian opened the animal skin roll and looked at it. There were some pictures of ropes and knots on it, and there were some annotations in the current text next to them. The animal skin roll was still new. It was only a few years ago when it was made. It should have been copied from the ancient books of the ancestors when Guizhe was learning the epilogue. Guizhe brought some straw ropes over. I made these last winter. You can try it with these. It's more convenient. Thanks. When you make more straw ropes, let me know. I'll help. Xiao Xian took out a straw rope and looked at it. These straw ropes were smooth and didn't have so many burrs. Each one was about the same length, about the size of a baby's little finger. The toughness was also very suitable. Guizhe sat down and also took out a straw rope. Then, according to each picture on the animal skin roll, he told Xiao Xian how to make a knot and what kind of knot meant. Sometimes, knots that looked very similar had very different meanings. This was probably the knotting method used to transmit hidden messages. Guizhe taught Xiao Xian some very simple knots, which were the same as the ones drawn on the animal skin roll. When he finished learning all the knots on the animal skin roll, Xiao Xian could even type out a sentence with the rope. Because it wasn't very difficult, and Xiao Xian had a good memory, after learning some skills, he let Guizhe do her work. There were still a lot of herbs in the medicine house that needed to be dealt with. He just had to look at it slowly and try it step by step. Guizhe saw that Xiao Xian's work was going well, so he went back to continue pounding the herbs. The alligator-snapping turtle lying at the door moved its heavy body to another place. It closed its eyes and continued to bask in the sun. Time passed little by little, and the animal skin roll on the left side of Xiao Xian's hand was getting fewer and fewer. When he finally tried everything recorded in it, Xiao Xian could roughly understand some simple conclusions. As for more complicated knots, the shaman didn't give him any. Perhaps there were not many records about knots passed down in the tribe, so what the shaman could tell him was limited. There were still a lot of straw ropes brought by Guizhe. Xiao Xian thought for a while and observed the line drawing in his mind. Soon, he entered that state again and looked at the knots that appeared on his hands. Last time, he didn't understand anything. This time, Xiao Xian at least had some foundation. However, gradually, Xiao Xian realized that this was different from the conclusions he had just learned. Perhaps, it wanted to express another meaning. According to the shaman, knots were used in many aspects in ancient times. If one method didn't work, there were other methods. There were knots for divination, knots for contracts, and so on. Since it didn't look like an ordinary record, could it be a divination or something else? Xiao Xian continued to observe the movements of the hands. When he got out of that state, he weakly moved his neck and felt that something was wrong with his hands. He looked down and found that his fingers were tied by the straw ropes. He didn't know how the ropes were tied, but all 10 of his fingers were tied by the straw ropes. Xiao Xian wanted to untie them, but he didn't know where to start. He could only slowly remove the straw ropes from his fingers. When all the straw ropes in his hands were removed, the straw ropes had been twisted into a ball and couldn't be untied. Xiao Xian tied the straw ropes into a big knot and threw it to the alligator snapping turtle. The alligator snapping turtle, who was basking in the sun, slowly opened its eyes and saw the straw rope next to it. It opened its mouth and bit it, slowly chewing. Xiao Xian paused and recalled the movements of the hands he had just seen. He took another straw rope and continued. Failure. Failure again. Failure again. The straw ropes were twisted into messy straw balls that couldn't be untied and thrown to the alligator snapping turtle. No matter how fast Xiao Xian tied the rope, the turtle still maintained its original slow speed of chewing the straw ropes. Therefore, as Xiao Xian's speed became faster and faster, the messy straw balls next to the alligator snapping turtle also became more and more. Guizhe, who was grinding medicine, glanced at Xiao Xian from time to time and thought, "Isn't Xiao Xian very smart? How can he tie all his fingers with a knot?" Xiao Xian only stopped when there were only about 10 straw ropes left. Wiping the sweat on his face, Xiao Xian walked out of the medicine house, exhausted. He would continue tomorrow. He didn't believe that the message sent by the bansui leaf could only produce a messy straw ball. Chapter 270. After that, Xiao Xian didn't use the straw ropes provided by Guizhe anymore. It was too wasteful. He used ordinary straw ropes to practice knotting. Although they were rough and burly, he didn't feel bad if they were broken. If he couldn't untie them, he could just use them as firewood. For 5 days in a row, other than patrolling and hunting, Xiao Xian spent the rest of his time trying to knot ropes. Old Ke didn't understand why Xiao Xian was so obsessed with playing with straw ropes, but since Xiao Xian insisted, he didn't say anything. No matter how big or small the straw balls were, they were all used as firewood. After failing again, Xiao Xian was a little discouraged. He removed the straw balls that were tied to his fingers and threw them aside. He picked up a gourd filled with water and gulped down a few mouthfuls. It was just knotting a rope, but he was tired and sweaty. However, it was much better than a few days ago. He could go out and run for a while after a whole day. If it was the first 2 days, he could walk, let alone run. Xiao Xian took some time to go to the shaman's stone house and told him about his troubles with knotting ropes. "It just feels wrong. Every time I play, my hands are tied," Xiao Xian said. The shaman was silent for a while and said, "If that's the case, you don't have to think about it all the time. It's better to be casual. You don't have to be obsessed with imitating the movements of your hands. You can have your own ideas. Xiao Xian thought about it and agreed. Anyway, it was in his mind. If he couldn't figure it out now, he could try it later. What was the saying, when necessary, you have to learn to be simple-minded. Someone once said that simple-minded people were actually very smart, because they could always do something that others couldn't. Understanding the inheritance wasn't something that could be done overnight. It couldn't be rushed, and it would affect his mentality. I know. Xiao Xian thanked him seriously. Seeing Xiao Xian's reaction, the shaman nodded with satisfaction. Just as he was about to praise Xiao Xian, he heard Xiao Xian say, "In 2 days, I plan to take a trip to the forest. It may be a little far, so I won't be back for 3 to 5 days. Cha-Cha seems to have found a good stone over there. I want to take a look." The shaman's heart skipped a beat. Just you? Now, the hunting team did not go on a long journey. Instead, they were exploring the area bit by bit. What they were looking for now was stability. At the same time, they could train the new batch of awakened warriors this year. However, since Xiao Xian said that he would be away for 3 to 5 days, the shaman was a little worried. If it were anyone else, the shaman wouldn't have reacted this way. However, the person in front of him was Xiao Xian. It was rare for an elder to light up the bone ornaments and inherit the will of the ancestors. The shaman was a little hesitant, but still nodded. All right, but be careful. Don't be impatient and don't advance rashly. The shaman warned. I know. Don't worry, Xiao Xian promised. Hearing these words, the shaman was so worried that he wanted to pull off all his beard. 2 days later, Xiao Xian left the tribe on Cha-Cha's back with the polished stone tools and food. After flying away from the tribe for a day, Xiao Xian walked directly in the forest. Cha-Cha needed to guard against other birds that suddenly appeared in the sky, and Xiao Xian didn't want to be a hindrance in the air. Walking in the strange forest, this was not the border area where the tribe first entered the forest. They were already deep in the forest. The surrounding environment was dangerous. With years of hunting experience and a better premonition than others, Xiao Xian was very sensitive to the hostile gazes around him. Even if they didn't have any murderous intent and only focused on Xiao Xian would be alerted as soon as they came within a certain range in the forest. The forest here was very humid, as if there was fog. The mountains in the distance were also hazy, faintly discernible. In this place, even a small beast or a small mountain was very dangerous. Further ahead, they walked into another forest. Tall and dense branches blocked the light from above. The place where Xiao Xian walked was very gloomy. Not far away, there was a hostile roar. He didn't know what kind of beast it was, but it was hiding behind the thick grass in the forest. It stared at Xiao Xian with its wild eyes, emitting a dark and ominous light. If it was the hunting ground on the other side of the river, the beasts would run away when they saw the hunters, because they knew that these people were not easy to deal with. They would be looking for death if they went up. However, in this strange forest, the beasts in the forest didn't know about human beings. They were alert to anything strange, but they also saw it as prey. Not only would they not run away, but they would also try to attack. A figure jumped out from behind the grass, accompanied by the low roar of the beast, announcing the start of the fight. The low roar of the beast became sharp and frightened. The sound stopped abruptly, the sound of the blade cutting the flesh, the splashing of the liquid, and the spreading smell of blood. When Xiao Xian withdrew the murderous look in his eyes and came out with the blood-stained blade, there were only the blood-stained beast corpses left in the forest. As soon as Xiao Xian left, less than 10 steps, some smaller beasts rushed out. They were not aiming at Xiao Xian, but at the beast corpse that had been cut in half. They screamed and scrambled for food. If they couldn't get it, they would bite each other. They didn't even look at Xiao Xian. However, not long after, as the pungent smell of blood spread, other beasts would come and drive away these smaller beasts and snatch the beast corpse. After flying and walking for a day, Xiao Xian looked at the sky. The sun was already hidden under the mountains, so he decided to find a place to rest. Cha-Cha fought with a ferocious beast with sharp claws living in a cave on the cliff. He drove the ferocious beast out of the cave, and then joined forces with Xiao Xian to make the ferocious beast their dinner. There were many beast bones piled up in the cave, with a rotten smell. There were also many insects of different sizes crawling around. Xiao Xian lit a torch to drive the insects away. As for the beast bones, Cha-Cha took them out of the cave. This could be a temporary resting place. If he came back in the future, he could come here to rest. Xiao Xian took out a piece of animal skin and drew a rough outline of the places along the way. Then he marked the location of the cave. This time, in addition to looking for the stone, he would also draw a simple map of the places along the way, so that it would be easier for the hunting team to explore and hunt. Xiao Xian applied some medicine to his wounds and Cha-Cha. Then he put out the fire and took the time to rest. When he woke up the next day, the sky was a little gloomy. He stood at the entrance of the cave and looked out. The forest below was moist. "It looks like it's going to rain," Xiao Xian said. Cha-Cha didn't like rain, so he planned to stay in the cave and wait for the weather to clear up before going out. He had been here many times, so he knew that the weather here changed quickly. It was raining now, but it might clear up soon. Xiao Xian ate the beast meat he had roasted yesterday for breakfast. The meat had become cold and hard, but he didn't care. He ate while looking at the sky outside. "I don't know when the rain will stop." Xiao Xian walked a little deeper into the cave, in case it would rain later. The wind here was very strong, and the rain might be blown in. Sitting in the cave, Xiao Xian saw the rope tied around his waist, and his hands itched. He hadn't touched a rope for 2 days. Since he had nothing to do, he took out the rope from the animal skin bag, cut a section with a knife, and played with it in his hands. The rope in the animal skin bag was a spare. As for the belt on his waist, of course, he couldn't take it off. Xiao Xian was about to tie the rope the way he used to, when he thought of the shaman's words, and he stopped. If he tied the rope the way he used to, the result would be the same. His hands would be tied, and he would end up with a messy bundle of grass. Xiao Xian sighed heavily, and closed his eyes. He threw away the memories of the past, and just twirled the rope around his hands aimlessly. Gradually, Xiao Xian lost interest in tying the rope. He wondered when the rain would start. Once it started raining in the forest, it would leave quickly. In this season, it wouldn't rain every day. However, if it didn't rain in this gloomy weather, wouldn't he have to keep waiting? As he thought about it, Xiao Xian seemed to see the pair of hands again, and the rope that was wrapped around the hands. The rope was moving quickly between the fingers. However, this time, the way the rope was tied was different. Xiao Xian didn't feel so chaotic, and it seemed to have a strong purpose. This time, Xiao Xian didn't divert his attention, but focused on the nodding movements of the hands. Xiao Xian's hands also unconsciously followed the movements, exactly the same as the nodding movements of the hands in his mind. After an unknown amount of time, Xiao Xian woke up from that state. When he opened his eyes and looked at his hands, he was shocked to find that there were several knots on the rope, and it wasn't tied up like a few days ago. Did he succeed? Or did he still fail? Xiao Xian guessed the meaning of the ropes and knots in his hands according to the basic conclusion he learned before. Just now, what was he thinking when he was tying the rope? Hunting? No, that wasn't it. Stone? No, even further back. Rain? Yes, rain. Thinking of this, Xiao Xian's expression became strange, but also a little excited. If the meaning of these conclusions was true, regardless of whether he succeeded or failed again, he had to verify it to know. Looking at the sky outside, Xiao Xian stood up and walked to the entrance of the cave. He took a deep breath, feeling the moist and cold water vapor in the air. He clenched his fist, stretched it out, and faced it. He silently counted the time. 5. He opened his fist and extended his little finger. 4. Extended his ring finger. 3. Extended his middle finger. 2. Extended his index finger. 1. Extended his thumb and opened his palm. Smack! There was a soft sound of liquid falling. His palm was slightly cold. Xiao Xian couldn't wait to look over, and then his smile froze. A pile of bird poop was lying quietly in the middle of his palm. Xiao Xian's face twitched. He planned to use something to wipe the bird poop off his palm. Just as he was about to retract his hand, another drop of liquid fell. It was followed by a second drop, a third drop, a fourth drop. Dense droplets of water fell from the sky, blown by the wind on the cliff wall, and some smashed into the cave. The forest at the foot of the mountain was instantly covered by a curtain of rain. The sound of dense raindrops hitting the leaves and the ground came from below. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.